Hey, welcome to the third hour of our program. On the line with us, our buddy Malcolm Nance, a U.S. intelligence expert, former spy, author of several books, including They Want to Kill Americans and The Plot to Destroy Democracy. He has a great Substack newsletter. It's free. You can get it over at malcolmnance.substack.com or malcolmnance.org. On Blue Sky, he's malcolmnance.bluesky.social, or basically at Malcolm Nance. And Malcolm, welcome back to the program. It's been too long since we've spoken.
Well, I'm just sorry. We got to keep speaking.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. I wanted to talk about the stuff, some of the stuff that you're really an expert on, and I'm not so much. We had this meeting with Mr. Zelensky, President Zelensky, in the White House last Friday, and apparently Pete Hegseth showed up wearing a tie that was the colors of the Russian flag, white, blue, red, which is kind of bizarre. And there was, and from some of these reports that are leaking out now, Trump actually was yelling at him, throwing maps on the floor, and telling him that, what do you know about this, and what do you think about it?
Yeah, I've been watching this ever since that meeting, and I've been talking to other people who know people that were in the room on both sides. And this is bizarre. I want you to look back at the meeting that Trump had with Zelensky last February, where they started, where Trump humiliated him in public. This was worse. This is where Trump humiliated him in private, and essentially, after speaking to Vladimir Putin, intended to get Vladimir Zelensky to accept Russia's proposal to surrender the provinces of Donbass, which Russia invaded in 2014, and Russia only occupies half of that province. It doesn't occupy all of it. And Luhansk, which is the other governorate that Russia invaded in 2014, they would permanently get Crimea and would give back to Ukraine very little parts of Kherson province and Zaporizhzhia province, and essentially reward Russia with the entire southeastern portion of Ukraine, including, here's the kicker, Tom, the sections of Donbass and Luhansk, which the Ukrainians never lost. So it would be the equivalent of saying, yeah, you have half of New York State, but we want everything, including all of New York State and New Jersey as well, to reward us for stopping a war that we, Russia, started. And Trump came to this meeting with Moscow's maps and showed Zelensky that Moscow wants this and you're going to give it to them. He is so incensed about trying to have this, that he's ending this war because there's $500 billion of oligarch money in Russia Trump doesn't have access to. It got pretty bad.
So why? I mean, Craig Unger has been reporting on this forever, about Trump going to Russia in the 80s and his wife's father was a KGB informant and they flattered him, and he came back here and he published this op-ed saying that we should pull out of NATO and crap on the Japanese and et cetera, et cetera. There's this persistent belief that Trump has always been an agent of Russia. What's your opinion of why he's doing this?
Well, I wrote 3 books about Trump's relationship with Russian intelligence. And when I wrote The Plot to Destroy Democracy and The Plot to Betray America, I went to Putin's offices in Dresden.
Carl Schmitt's advice to Hitler, this Nazi philosopher, was, look for laws that have provisos, that have, clauses or provisions that allow a state of emergency to suspend other laws and declare the state of emergency in a way that does that. And that's what Donald Trump is on the verge of doing when he invokes the Insurrection Act.
If Democrats can ever get back in control of either house, they need to start putting some teams on looking through these old arcane laws that the Republicans are using and reworking them, or writing some kind of legislation so that they can't be used so willy-nilly. You can't just say, okay, well, I'm using this now and we're going to do this. the Republicans and the Heritage Foundation and, the Federalist Society, they've all been working for like 50 years or more to enact all this stuff that's going on. And we need to start thinking about that, how these old laws that take effect, even the stupid ones that you hear about now and then, oh, this stupid law exists, like, we need to think about that kind of stuff and, like, long-term plans, dude. Okay, we need to respond to what's going on now, and the protests, coming up are fantastic. And I could say a billion other things because you're spot on today, but, like, dude, we really need to think about these old laws that they're using to twist how they are viewing things, and it needs to be that we just,
I completely agree, Sean. And the ones that we need to look at most carefully are the ones that Carl Schmitt was talking about back in 1928, 29, 30. Well, really in 33 when the Reichstag fire happened. And Carl Schmitt was the Nazi philosopher and jurist who advised Hitler. And he said, you've got these emergency laws on the books. And so all you have to do is declare a state of emergency because the Parliament building just burned. And there are still to this day people suggesting it was the Nazis themselves who burned it all. Although Marius van der Lubbe, who is as I recall, 28-year-old Dutch communist, was the guy who was, arrested and I think he was executed for it. Might have been imprisoned. But anyhow, he probably couldn't have even gotten into the building without the help of the Nazis. But, that's what Hitler did, is he used emergency decrees to seize absolute power. It's what El-Sisi did in Egypt. It's what Erdogan did in Turkey. It's what Putin did in Russia when you had that theater attack, by the Chechens.
Right.
Over and over and over again, this has been used. And Carl Schmitt's advice to Hitler, this Nazi philosopher, was, look for laws that have provisos, that have clauses or provisions that allow a state of emergency to suspend other laws and declare the state of emergency in a way that does that. And that's what Donald Trump is on the verge of doing when he invokes the Insurrection Act of 1806 or 1807, whenever it was. It was during Jefferson's presidency. And that Insurrection Act says that the president can federalize the troops, and it gets around the Posse Comitatus Act of 1876, which says that federal troops can't play police roles. It gets around that by saying that you must meet a couple of criteria. The criteria are that, number one, the country is under physical invasion by a foreign power, or number two, that an actual insurrection that threatens the viability of the United States government is underway. Now, the second one is what happened during the Civil War. The first is what happened during the War of 1812, and but that's about it. Now, they have invoked the Insurrection Act. Presidents have a couple of times. I believe LBJ did once during the riots in Los Angeles. Arguably those were not good ideas. It shouldn't have been done. But that Insurrection Act is one of many, Sean, and I completely agree with you. One of many that need to be
If I could make one more point real quick, though.
Yeah.
If I could make one more point real quick. We could talk about all the levels of hypocrisy from this government, but the fact that Bob Menendez was convicted of corruption for the Egyptian government, and now Trump is all like, yay, Egypt. Oh, my gosh,
great
dude.
point.
It's
Great
just
point.
unbounded, dude.
Great point, Sean. Yeah, thank you very much. We'll be right back. In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com. It's a collection of essays. This one is by David Gilbert on page 31, titled "The System Within the System, the Prison Industrial Complex and Imperialism." For those of us held behind locked gates within the walls and fences topped with razor wire, the corrections regime is the system that works tirelessly to impose total control over every aspect of our lives. Yet as ponderous and powerful as prisons are, they're only one part, a central girder, of a much bigger and more foreboding house of horrors, which can most accurately be named imperialism. The structural needs of the larger edifice set the specifications for the size and position of the girder. The strength of the girder helps determine how long the building itself will stand. We can't understand the explosion of imprisonment in the United States since 1971 without looking at an imperialism's urgent needs and goals of that period. By the same token, we can't develop an effective program around the prison industrial complex without grappling with the stresses and trends of the larger system of imperial rule. To be clear, before you take time to read this chapter, I don't offer any brilliant ideas on strategy. Those will most likely emerge from the organizing and activist efforts themselves. However, some of the concerns discussed may raise questions that go into forming strategy. I definitely look forward to learning from the dialogues that this generates on these issues. Imperialism may sound like the kind of rhetoric we want to avoid, but it's one word that needs to be rescued as the best way to name the system that rules over us. The basis of imperialism is the relentless quest for profits around the globe. Its most striking characteristic is the colossal and grotesque polarization of wealth. That polarization happens between nations, between the rich countries of the North and the impoverished ones of the global South, the impoverished countries of Africa, Latin America, and parts of Asia, and at the same time within each country based on class, race, and gender. The poles of dazzling wealth and abject poverty are intimately linked, as the former results from the ruthless plunder of the latter. This system is built on and intensifies all the major forms of oppression: patriarchy, capitalism, and white supremacy, all of which are structurally central. At the same time, imperialism highlights the global character of the system in a way that explains why the most intense oppression and resistance have been in the South, and that also provides the context for why the liberation struggles of the various people of color have been in the forefront within the U.S. There's no way to capture what the system costs in human life and potential, the pain and loss for all of us. Close to 1 billion human beings suffer chronic hunger, while another 2 billion face nutritional deficiencies. 1 billion lack access to clean drinking water. Just looking at children under the age of 5, imperialism is a holocaust in progress. Over 9 million die every year from easily preventable causes associated with poverty. The price for future generations may be even more severe as the rapaciousness of this global frenzy for profits threatens the very ecological basis for sustaining human life on any scale on our planet. Since most people won't accept living in squalor amid plenty, imperialism entails both the most sophisticated and the most brutal forms of social control. Its most salient feature is war, war after war after war, mainly against the peoples of the South. The domestic front line of such repression is a truly violent and harmful prison industrial complex. Today, 2,300,000 people are held behind bars, about 7 times the number in 1971. That explosion was unprecedented, coming after a 70-year period when the rates of imprisonment had remained more or less constant. This dramatic change did not result from some sudden skyrocketing of criminal activity, but rather from a radical expansion of what was designated as a crime and a draconian increase in the punishments for those crimes. Such extreme measures were driven by considerations way beyond criminal justice and often at cross purposes to the proclaimed goal of public safety. These destructive changes were born from crisis, one much more severe and protracted than the periodic ups and downs of the business cycles that occur over a roughly 10-year period, but rather a situation that threatened the very survival of the system. Such structural crises occur because capitalism is by its nature unstable. The economy is vast and complicated, but the major decisions are made by a tiny corporate and financial elite, with each thinking only of his own profits. When a structural crisis develops, the long-term institutional arrangements that assured a reliable flow of profits and the rule of capital no longer function. One dramatic example was the Great Depression of the 1930s, followed by World War II. At the end of that period, a new set of international institutions, such as the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, were created. At the same time, a new deal was hammered out for the terms of the bargain between capital and labor within the U.S. Those arrangements worked well for capital until they broke down a generation later. That new structural crisis, which emerged between 1968 and 73, is the seedbed for the burgeoning of the prison-industrial complex and many related changes in U.S. history. The first and most obvious signs were political, as the resistance to imperialism crested in 1968. Abolition now.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
All right, top of the Tuesday to you. First of all, my most sincere apologies for not being here with you yesterday. As many of you probably in the Rockies and whatnot are discovering, Portland got hit over the weekend by just a massive storm, one of those atmospheric rivers, which is probably now making its way across the country. It knocked out power here in our building, and our internet provider, Comcast, somehow screwed us up. We got disconnected from them, and then when we reconnected, apparently they assigned us a whole new IP address, and which is like your gateway, your doorway to your internet provider, and didn't inform us. And we were running around like chickens trying to figure out what's the problem here, because we had no internet access at all yesterday. Couldn't do anything. And it took hours to figure it out, and finally figured out that Comcast had screwed us. Not intentionally, it was some kind of screw up on their end, but in the midst of this power outage. So anyhow, our engineer Chase is here. He's been working hard all day yesterday, and we've got everything redone and reset, and so we're back on the air. But again, my apologies, and especially to our stations, who have relied on us for, in some cases, over 20 years for a regular, daily, reliable live program. We're back. Hold Jamaica in your thoughts over the next few hours. This Cat 5 monster, Hurricane Melissa, is hitting the island. Welcome to climate change hurricanes. I mean, this is just it's going to be a disaster. We've got a lot to talk about today. Is the assault on democracy stronger than we think? Are we nearing permanent fascist control of this country? Also, Bernie nails fascism as Trump and the Republicans scramble to deflect blame from the people who are going hungry amidst the largest healthcare premium hike in the history of the United States. We'll see how this all works out for the GOP. And a maple syrup alert, Canada is preparing to declare America guilty of human rights abuses. How's Trump going to handle that? More tariffs? More warmongering? In the second hour of our program, our buddy Greg Palast is going to drop by. He has met and knows, or knew, Chávez and knows Maduro. He says, I know drugs are not the reason Trump wants war with Venezuela. This is going to be an interesting conversation. When Greg was a reporter with the BBC, he was stationed in Venezuela. Also, is corruption the new American dream? A nation rebuilt on the gospel of Grift? And this is my daily take from yesterday. We're talking about it today. Also, you think ICE is bad now? The Border Patrol is taking over ICE, and even these guys are even more aggressive. In the third hour of our program, the national redistricting wars, gerrymandering wars, are entering a new phase. It used to be that your vote mostly counted. Now the Democrats are forced to fight fire with fire. We'll talk about that. And also, is this what happens to scientists in a dictatorship? Why Russia just arrested a 70-year-old scientist for backing curbs on Antarctic krill fishing? Wild stuff. So, to start out, my daily take today over at HartmannReport.com is the assault on democracy stronger than we think and nearing permanent control. And, my point is that Trump and the billionaires, the fascists, the neo-fascist billionaires, and the foreign fascists that he's aligned himself and as a result, the United States, or at least part of the United States with, are in some ways stronger than I think most Americans realize, and in some ways weaker than some of us who are in despair realize. Now, I'm going to get into the weakness part tomorrow, but today I wanted to talk about the strong part. Stephen Levitsky, the co-author of How Democracies Die, says that there's like this spectrum. On one far side of the line is democracy, functioning democracy. On the other far end of the line is oligarchy, autocracy, tyranny, despotism, dictatorship. And in between is this thing that he calls competitive authoritarianism. In other words, you have an authoritarian government, it rules by fear, and it exploits the rule of law to go after people that it doesn't like. The way that Trump is going after James Comey right now, for example, or ICE is going after protesters. And yet you still have elections. It's still, quote, competitive. Not really, but sorta. And that's the world that, according to Stephen Levitsky, we are now fully in. And I think it's a reasonable description. They're using the nation systems to skew the rules, to restrict opposition, to weaponize institutions, to vandalize the truth, to destroy and ignore democratic norms. I mean, we're about halfway down that road in just a short 10 months. And the template for this, of course, is Project 2025, which Viktor Orban and his people literally, or perhaps figuratively, I got to stop using the word literally, Orban and his buddies gave to the Heritage Foundation, and spoke with the people from the Heritage Foundation, and now we've got. I don't know if you caught Rachel's show last night. They're using Pegasus. ICE now has Pegasus. Pegasus is a no-click spyware. It was developed by the Israeli government, if I'm recalling correctly, or an Israeli company. And all they have to know is your cell phone number. And boom, your phone turns into a spying device. They can turn on the camera, you don't know it. They turn on the microphone, you don't know it. You might notice that your phone is getting warm, or the battery is burning up, is declining more rapidly than normal. But you have no idea why. There's no way of knowing why. You can't detect this with spyware software, the spyware detection software. This is like, military intelligence grade stuff. And Biden outlawed its use in the United States. Well, Trump has allowed now, specifically by executive order, has allowed ICE to use this. And ICE is using this against protesters. Apparently. We don't have the proof of that. We know ICE is using it. We don't know exactly who they're using it against, but I think, protesters are one safe assumption. In Hungary, Viktor Orban is doing this kind of thing. In Russia, Vladimir Putin is doing this kind of thing. And, now we have Trump appointed and even elected officials who are openly defying precedent, openly defying courts and the rule of law, have partisan weaponization of, institutions like the IRS, the FBI, the DOJ that can punish people, dark money influence networks, media that has been captured by oligarchs, and more to come. I don't know if you saw this thing. Taylor Sheridan is the just absolute genius behind a whole bunch of programs, including Yellowstone. And he just canceled his relationship with Paramount because the Ellison father and son, the Ellison family, these right-wing billionaires, the second or third richest guy in the world, have taken over, Paramount and CBS and everything associated with it, and he doesn't like the way they're running. These right-wingers are running the company. It's just like you see these little cracks appearing, but now the Ellisons are talking about taking over CNN, and MSNBC is going to be spun off in a little while. So, I mean, it's just, wild stuff. So what do we do about this? What do Democrats do? I mean, and I say that as like small d Democrats, people who believe in democracy, as we watch our democracy being deconstructed right in front of us. I think it's fairly straightforward. Obviously, we have to be in the streets. These protest movements, the No Kings movements, are vital. But a protest can be a lot like fireworks. It's really amazing when it happens, but then the smoke clears and you're back to where you were. We've got to be building institutions. We've got to get inside the Democratic Party and motivate it to actually become a progressive institution like it was during the times of Franklin Roosevelt and Lyndon Johnson. We have to join with organizations that are doing the good work out there. Indivisible, 5051, DFA. There's just so many great organizations that we can become parts of. And if you believe in this republic of citizens, not subjects, we have to become part of it. It's not enough to just complain on social media, although that's important. I mean, it's a step. Although, I went over to X. I haven't read X in a couple of weeks. Yesterday, and I was just astonished. The first thing I see is a tweet from Elon Musk lying about. So it just blew my mind. It's become a sewer. Anyhow, get active.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
We have to save us, is the message. Stick around. And welcome back. Aaron in Richmond, Virginia. Hey, Aaron, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. So my question is, with considering the way that things are going, if Trump is able to successfully steal the 2020 election and seize an unconstitutional third term, do you think that we should seriously start thinking about a national divorce where coalitions of blue states peacefully succeed?
Secede. Yeah.
Secede.
I think we're seeing the green shoots of that right now, Aaron. You've got, I believe, 17 states. I may be wrong. It might have been 15 or 16, but I think it was 17 states now have joined in this interstate compact that started with Oregon, Washington, and California to deal with public health issues. Because Bob Kennedy is, actively sabotaging the CDC and the FDA and all that. We're developing different standards for everything from abortion to vaccinations to recommendations around Tylenol and things. That's obviously just one small segment of the much larger spectrum. The biggest challenge, of course, would be financial. How do you deal with the money that's flowing through these states? We've discussed this.
That's one thing. It seems like blue states already pay more in federal taxes than they receive.
Well, the problem, and this is
not a good deal.
Where I was going with that. I've discussed this on this program a number of times with people calling in about, why can't, Oregon or California or whatever just, withhold all that money that's going to the federal government. They can't because it doesn't flow through their hands. Most of the money, I live in Oregon, for example. We have 5 million people in Oregon. The vast majority of us, who pay taxes, have a job. I'm the employer here, so this all flows through me. And so I when I pay Sean, I deduct her taxes, and and Nate and Jeremy and everybody else, and that money then goes into an account in our checking account here in Portland. And then, every quarter or every month, it gets sent off to Washington, D.C. The state of Oregon has nothing to do with it. They have no way to lay their hands on that money. And probably 95% of the money that goes out of Oregon into Washington, D.C., even though we give D.C. a lot more than we get back, probably 95% of it runs through that route. It goes through private employers. The only money that Oregon could actually lay its hands on are the withholding taxes for Oregon state employees. But even then, they'd be in violation of federal law. So I just, maybe I'm missing something, but nobody has called and told me how to do this. And so that would be the big one. I mean, if blue states could figure out how to say, we're not going to send money to the federal government anymore, it would require a change in state law. It would require some kind of a change in federal law, or the defiance of federal law. And I just don't see it happen. I don't see how that happens. But I do think that we are starting already to, and it wouldn't surprise me to see, collaborations among blue states around things that have to do with international trade, for example. Passing product through states. I don't know. But Aaron, I think it's coming. I really do. And hopefully without a civil war. I don't think we're looking at civil war here, but I think we are looking at some form of soft secession. Yeah. Thanks, Aaron. It's 20 minutes past the hour. I'll be back with you in just a minute. Stick around. Change starts with you. You can be calling your Democratic or Republican representatives to let them know what you think by calling 202-224-3121. It's the Capitol switchboard. It'll get you right through to them. So we have this major culture war going on in the United States. You've got Republicans trying to ban abortion. They're trying to ban books. Not just trying to, they're actually doing all of these things. Banning books, banning trans girls in sports, attacking basically the entire queer community, whatever they can to try to sow division and hate, promoting Nazi memes, talking about how, Jews are paying to have black and brown people replace white people and all this kind of stuff. Why are billionaires doing this? Why are they funding these people? I mean, billionaires don't care about crime. They live in gated communities with private security. They don't care about public schools. Their kids go to private schools. They don't care about public transportation. They fly in private jets. Oh, yeah, that's right. If they can get us fighting against each other, if they can get us hating each other, we will ignore their efforts to cut their taxes and deregulate their industries. There's a whole video about it at tom.tv. Check it out.
Stronger than we think. We were told the vote was sacred, that the truth would never sink. But the billionaires are smiling while they're pouring out the ink. They're buying up the judges, and the headlines start to shrink. Tell me now, my friend, is the assault on democracy stronger than we think? It's a quiet kind of thunder, rolling right beyond the brink. Not a war with guns or soldiers, but with money, laws, and ink. They're rewriting every promise faster than we can blink. Yeah, the assault on democracy is stronger than we think. They've been working in the shadows while we're shouting in the streets, turning freedom into slogans till it crumbles at their feet. and the line between the people and the power starts to shrink. Tell me true, my friend, is the assault on democracy stronger than we think?
I think in some ways it is, and in some ways it's not, and all is not lost yet. We still have to keep fighting back. Meanwhile, Donald Trump and his administration, well, let me just start with Bernie, okay? This is Bernie just nails this. He tweets this thing out yesterday. He says, under Trump's big, beautiful bill, Google got an $18 billion tax break. Amazon got a $16 billion tax break. Microsoft got a $12 billion tax break. Facebook got an $11 billion tax break. And now they're writing checks to Trump for his $300 million, that's $0.3 billion, $300 million ballroom. Gee, Bernie writes, I wonder why. This is that corruption that, I wrote about yesterday. I'll be talking about more in the second hour. But this is the destruction of America, basically, right in front of us, turning us into a tin pot, third-rate, third-world dictatorship, where all hail Donald Trump. Everybody has to bow down. We're down over. Raw Story's got a piece today about how if you're a federal employee, you get an annual review. Well, in your annual review now, you've got to write a little thing about what you've done, and you have to talk about how wonderful Donald Trump is. And if you don't, you won't have your job for another year. I mean, this is like straight out of North Korea. Meanwhile, in Vermont, Phil Scott, who I think is a Republican, I could be wrong, but anyhow, the Vermont governor, Phil Scott, says he's thinking about suing the Trump administration over SNAP benefits, food stamps. Why? Because the U.S. Department of Agriculture, which pays out food stamps, has a $5 billion contingency fund. And the Trump administration is saying, nah, we're not going to use that $5 billion. They could easily, the SNAP benefits are supposed to run out this weekend. They could easily continue these things. $5 billion would last a while. It's more. It's not like the $130 million that Timothy Mellon gave Trump to pay the troops. $100 per soldier. No, it's not. This is, $5 billion is real money. And the governor of Vermont, Governor Scott, says 63,000 Vermonters are on food stamps, and you're going to screw them. And the USDA is saying, well, we can only use those funds for emergencies. Well, isn't not being able to write a check an emergency? Isn't Congress refusing the Republicans refusing to fund these programs an emergency? And of course, why are they doing that? Well, because of these catastrophic increases in health insurance. I'll tell you about that and about the maple syrup divorce between America and Canada on the other side of the break, and I'll pick up your calls. Stay with us.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Defending America from the weapons of mass deception. I'll be back with you in just a few minutes. Book on the Thom Hartmann Book Report today, or Book Club today, is Cuban Women Confront the Future. It's an interview with Vilma Espin. Vilma Espin was the president of the Federation of Cuban Women since its founding in 1960, and was the chair of the Commission for Social Prevention and president of the Infancy Institute and the International Federation of Democratic Women. And it's a long-form interview, actually, the book. So the first question: what does socialism mean in the lives of a Cuban family, and in particular, Cuban woman? Vilma Espin. For the Cuban family, especially the woman, socialism has meant an enormous improvement to the quality of life and personal development. We should remember that until January 1st, 1959, in our country, hunger, poverty, exploitation, repression, and dependence reigned. The revolution opened up new horizons in the economic, political, and social fields, and amongst its key principles is the defense of equal rights for all human beings. The constant struggle to make ends meet disappeared, and with it the antagonism between people competing for the crumbs that could help them escape the tragic destiny that awaited the majority. Thus the family, the basic cell of society, could develop in a rounded way. Our revolution assured all Cubans the chance to exercise each one of their inalienable rights. Each citizen is assured that food prices are reasonable and that education and medical services are free. The state makes a systemic effort to improve living standards to the extent that it is permitted by the tense battle for development that we wage under blockade and constant imperialist threats. Child care facilities have been created to provide care for the children of tens of thousands of working women from the age of 3 months to 6 years. Services to lighten domestic work have been created. Hundreds of thousands of students have also received free lunch at day school and all their meals at boarding school. Hundreds of thousands of workers also receive their meals at a moderate price in their workplace. More industrial laundries and dry cleaners have been established, and more domestic labor-saving devices are available with preference in acquisition and cheaper prices for workers. Huge resources are dedicated to housing construction in urban and rural zones. We also try to guarantee recreational facilities and spiritual enjoyment to all the population. Of course, the possibilities are exciting, but also what we have achieved to date, considering our limitations, is already vastly superior to what families experienced in the past. Social Security provides an income for those who cannot work. As far as women are concerned, equal rights have certainly changed their position in the family and in society. A woman's participation in social production, because it implies her financial independence, has altered her dependent position in the marriage and allowed a change in her ideas, in the way she looks at life. The laws that govern family relations, such as the Family Code, are based on equality and guarantee the right of members of the family to participate in society, to work, study, and to responsibly educate the children in line with our revolutionary principles. This does not mean that we achieved all that we aspire to. We still have problems of a material nature to resolve, which are directly related to our economic development. There is still the need to eliminate backward ideas that some people hold, men and women, with respect to the role that each person should play within the home, the nature of the socialist family and the relationship between a couple, ideas which work against the full participation of women in the building of a new society. Obviously, the economic security guaranteed by both men and women having access to work, free health care, and education, the obvious satisfaction and confidence in oneself that equal opportunity and the chance to fully develop to the extent of one's talents, intelligence, and aptitude offer to each person, the constant motivation and emotional stability that comes from feeling useful, recognized, and dignified as a human being. Everything that socialism has brought to us undoubtedly fulfills the deepest desires of a family, particularly the woman, who until just a quarter century ago was exploited, oppressed, and marginalized in the family and in society. Question: what is the primary concern in Cuba, work or the human being? What place do women occupy within this concern? Velma Espen: in Cuba, a country that is building socialism, the highest aim is human happiness, based on respect for the fundamental human rights of each person. That includes full social equality to education, healthcare, work, and professional training, with the chance to employ all of one's faculties to take an active role in society and to help develop that society, to create the material and spiritual basis for a full, harmonious life, where the highest qualities of both men and women flourish. To reach those aspirations requires work, talent, dedication, and willingness from everybody. It requires constant scientific and technological innovation to assure economic and social development. Thus, each member of our society, along with the right to work and all the benefits brought by the revolution, has acquired the duty to help create the economic basis necessary for such advantages. The building of a new society and the fulfillment of new aspirations could not possibly be achieved except on the basis of work and the willingness of the whole population. And the people work with enthusiasm because work is the means for creating wealth and goods for all to enjoy. Work that is free from exploitation does require a new dimension, a quality that stimulates and produces satisfaction. To feel that you are useful and are creating your destiny, to project yourselves toward the future through your work, to cultivate the future. In a speech in January 1964, Che Guevara said that when each Cuban viewed work as a vital expression of their human creativity, technology, technique, and inventions, would proceed apace, and all would participate with an uncontainable force in building the new society. The book, Cuban Women Confront the Future, by Vilma Espin. Did you know that every weekday we send out an email before the show giving you all the topics coming up so you can be fully informed and ready to interact with our program? Or that after the show we send out Sue's Stack, a list of every topic I've discussed along with clickable hot links to every source of information I've shared with you on the air? It's all completely free and available over at tom.tv, THOM.tv. Check it out.
He woke up raging, thumb on the phone, blaming Ontario in a furious tone.
Says Reagan loved tariffs.
Spoiler,
He didn't.
now trade talks are dead, 'cause Trump got offended.
Oh, say, can you see a trade war with a tree?
Carney's come, Trump's in all caps, you'll see.
Violet's a maple syrup meltdown, dripping down the feed. Carney's calm and steady, Trump's fueled by greed. Tariffs on pancakes, chaos in play.
He's fighting Canada on a Friday.
That big guy, Ronald Reagan here, please let me rest. Free trade was kinda what I thought was best.
Fake ghost.
Deep state ghost?
Have some toast.
Reagan's rolling in his grave, trade deals he tried to say.
Say farmers cry, prices climb, steel town stuck in overtime. All for a tweet,
All for a show.
while the markets tremble below.
Battle Canada, hold my beer. Trump's trade war shifting gear. Carney smiles polite and clear. We've got maple syrup and receipts right here.
It's a maple syrup meltdown, chaos and cheer. Another Trump tantrum, same old year.
Yes, another Trump tantrum.
Gonna pay for the pancake.
Who's going to pay for the pancakes now? Canada is set. By the way, I think the thing is really setting Donald Trump off. In addition to the Doug Ford's ad, citing Ronald Reagan, there's another one, the Save America movement, which Steve Schmidt and Reverend Barber are partners in, has another video out. Maybe I'll share it with you tomorrow. Of Reagan speaking about the importance of immigration and how when we close our borders to immigrants, we will die as a nation. And it's this beautiful Reagan speech with video of ICE just beating people, But Canada is the rumor. Gene Blundell, who I quote frequently on this show, the Canadian opinion writer, shall we say, deanblundell.substack.com, is writing, rumors are swirling that the government of Canada is set to officially condemn the Trump regime as an enemy of the American people and democracy due to the extreme human rights abuses being carried out by Trump. Prime Minister Mark Carney may bring this up, and he's got a bunch of different points. Number one, the suspension of U.S. refugee admission program, which has stranded families and interpreters, people who had already cleared vetting pipelines. Number two, asylum access gutted by emergency orders, fast-track expulsions from the borders, troop deployments, aggressive policing. Number three, deportations to third countries in violation of basic human rights. Number four, prolonged detention and pressure to sign voluntary returns out of the country without meaningful access to counsel. Number five, deaths in custody, inadequate medical care, including for pregnant women, warehousing of children with limited access to parents or legal support. Number six, dedicated immigration sites overflowing, and they are sending people to the Bureau of Prisons. These are people who have not committed an actual crime. Being here without documentation is a misdemeanor. It's not a felony. Sweeping interior raids, birthright citizenship targeted by executive order, domestic dissent labeled a security threat, USAID and related programs killed, basically. And Blundell says, expect a war of words. This is going to get wild. Meanwhile, Republicans are scrambling to shift blame away from Donald Trump for the SNAP benefits the food stamp benefits expiring on Saturday. They're saying if you go to the website, the food stamp website, it literally says, and by the way, this is a violation of the Hatch Act. This is a crime that the Trump administration is committing. Whoever is running the U.S. Department of Agriculture right now is guilty of a crime, a violation of the Hatch Act, by posting on their website, quote, Senate Democrats have now voted 12 times to not fund the food stamp program, which is not true. Not true. Senate Democrats are perfectly willing to fund the food stamp program as long as Donald Trump and the Republicans will fund Medicaid, basically the Affordable Care Act subsidies. But in addition to that, Republicans don't need a single Democratic vote to pass a budget through the Senate. All they need to do is suspend the filibuster, and they can do that with 51 votes. They've got those 51 votes. Republicans can end this shutdown right now. Obviously, they are not doing it. Why? Because obviously they don't want to do it. They like the shutdown. They think it's working to their advantage. The website, the food stamp website, goes on, is the Agriculture Department. The well has run dry. We are approaching an inflection point for Senate Democrats. See, just mentioning Democrats, that's a violation of the Hatch Act. They can continue to hold out for health care for illegal aliens and gender mutilation procedures, which, again, another lie. Illegal immigrants don't get health care. And, genital mutilation. Really? I didn't realize the Republicans were so upset about, circumcision, but apparently they are. Or reopen the government so mothers, babies, and the most vulnerable among us can receive critical nutrition assistance. This Republican rhetoric, they note, is coming directly from Speaker Mike Johnson. And, of course, the other one is the Affordable Care Act exchanges. Now, this is interesting. The Democrats had been betting that there's this thing called the early market. There's actually a word for it. It's the early window shopping. It's the week before open enrollment, right? We are right now in the week before open enrollment. Open enrollment, for the new Affordable Care Act plan starts on November 1st. And this week before is when the government publishes the new prices. And they're refusing to do it. The Trump administration is refusing to publish what you're going to pay for your health care. Now, the Democrats have been betting that when these numbers got published, all of America would go, holy cow, are you kidding? Look at that. This is my insurance. Look at what it's going to. But nobody's doing that right now because nobody has access to the numbers because the Trump administration is refusing to publish them. This is, about a little more than half of the Democrats in the Senate wrote a letter to Mehmet Oz, Dr. Oz, who's the head of Medicare and Medicaid Services, which oversees the Affordable Care Act, and said, you have failed to open early window shopping, which means millions of Americans who buy their own insurance on healthcare.gov are unaware of the catastrophic premium hikes barreling towards them. The 24 million American people who buy insurance on the ACA marketplace need as much time and information as possible to understand and prepare for these significant premium increases. Millions of Americans still have not received any information from their insurance plan or from CMS about the biggest premium hike in history. If you can't baffle them with BS, baffle them with hide the facts. I guess that's the new Trump strategy. So what's on your mind today? Susan in Caldwell, Idaho. Hey, Susan, what's up?
Hey, kind of on your theme today. I was looking at the Telegraph out of London newspaper's podcast called Defense and Foreign Affairs, and they were discussing, it was 10/21 is the date of this particular episode, discussing the rare earth metals embargo from China. This is not new. China's been doing this for decades, and what was really interesting to me were the comments from readers. The readers of the Telegraph are as left-wing as Mark Carney is. They are not. They were so much divided between America's getting what it deserves for bullying the rest of us, and the rest of it was, well, these capitalists have been, cheapening everything so that we can't do anything, for ourselves anymore. And why should we, and my conclusion from all this is, why should we shed blood for these people who have set this up for failure. Do you know there's 1,000 pounds of rare earth minerals in one F-35?
Wow. No, I didn't.
I mean, and it just
I'm
goes
not
on from
surprised.
there. You can't run a nuclear submarine without these things to run I guess they're super magnets in those propulsion systems. Yeah. And, China just says, okay, try and defy us. You won't make another F-35.
All right.
Right. Why should we shed blood for these idiots who let this happen over decades? And it's not just the rare earth minerals, which, by the way, are the bottom row of your periodic table. If you want to know their names, look at a periodic table. It's that bottom row in the main table. What about all the other minerals? I'm sitting in a state that sits on every kind of mineral. We had a cobalt mine ready to open 2 years ago. China played with the commodity price of cobalt, and the mine, which had already hired hundreds, like 600 miners, to go to work the next week, it never opened. Not a peep out of Washington to defend this mineral, which apparently we need for our Teslas and other electric vehicles.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Why would I defend these people? Just saying, I would defend my homeland and my border, but I'm not going anywhere for any of these people.
Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. And it is a shocking lack of foresight over several administrations, by the way, of both parties. Susan, thank you. Thanks a lot. Although, Ezra Klein would argue that it's because California has regulations to make it hard to open a mine. I don't know. I really don't. 45 minutes past the hour.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
I'll be back with more of your calls in just a moment. Stay with us. This is the Thom Hartmann Program, the place where despair is not an option. And welcome back. Don in Pittsburgh, Kansas. Hey, Don, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom.
Hey.
Well, looking at what sort of democracy, what stage the U.S. is in, The Economist, about 4 or 5 years ago, moved the U.S. From rated as a full democracy to a flawed democracy.
Yeah.
The Economist is not a left-wing publication.
No. Far from it.
And, there's just tremendous struggles going on right now. For instance, in Kansas, we managed to pass they tried to sneak an anti-abortion, proposal through back in 2022, and they were stunned when they lost 60-40. And they used every subterfuge. They did it in the summer when there was no interest. They lied about stuff. They made it real confusing to read it, everything, but they lost 60-40. So now, of course, they're moving through the courts and everything. And Chris Kobach, the evil Chris Kobach, was up there arguing up in a big suburb of Kansas City for the, to put all kinds of warnings and this and that and everything, make it difficult to have an abortion in Kansas. Kansas has surprisingly become a place where people go for abortions.
Yeah.
But
wasn't Kansas where the abortion doctor was murdered, the famous guy?
Oh, yes.
Dr. Tiller?
George Tiller.
Yeah.
That was out in Wichita.
Yeah.
And they shot him down in his backyard at a barbecue.
Yep.
One of them got killed while he was in church.
Yep.
I mean, But I just, like I say, you can't quit fighting. But, I know another thing we see going on is muzzling of people. There's a couple, since that guy got assassinated, then you can't say anything about him. So there's been like 100 professors and staff members of universities fired because of that. But before then, there was a guy that they fired, and this was at Texas State University in San Marcos, and he had gone to a conference, and so a right-wing, one of these operatives who strings together, deceptive videos. She did some stuff, and they got his firing is final. He's going further in court, but it's just it's of course they ruin you if you're not wealthy. You can maybe win in court, but you don't win.
Yeah. No, I get it. I totally get it.
Long deal.
Yep, Don. Hopefully, one day this long national nightmare will be over, and we'll all live to see it. Don, thank you for the calls.
Some places have avoided this, but I don't know if we can.
Yeah, spot on. Thanks, Dave in Federal Way, Washington. Hey, Dave, what's up?
Hey, not too much, Tom. I'm glad you're back on. I listened on Sirius XM, and I thought it was a serious problem. Then when I saw you weren't on local, my imagination started to run wild. But the thing is they won't disappear someone as famous as you. I heard they disappeared some comedian. I guess maybe it was in New York or something that had some bit of fame. But I mean, I got to follow up on that. I'm just glad you're back. Hey, I chalked it up to maybe you really enjoy Halloween. But what I wanted to talk about was the democracy. Okay. Kamala Harris, she gave a speech about trust in governments. Okay. Now, she's talking about the United States, and from her point of view, that's a huge topic. But trust in democracy is almost nil all over the world. And this Russell vote.
I think this is because Putin and all his buddies have been orchestrating a campaign against it. Speaking of Halloween, by the way, Dave, Louisa's Halloween song is coming up next, so stay tuned. We'll be right back. 10 minutes before the hour. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. So a lot of people are wondering, why is it in America that we can't have nice things? Why don't we have, the same things every other democracy has? Every other democracy in the world has a national health care system of some form, and everybody is covered. We don't. We've got 27 million uninsured people and over 100 million underinsured people. Why is that? Why is it that every other country in the world offers college education very inexpensively, if not for free, and for here you go to debt? Why is it that we've got our public schools crumbling and other countries are doing well? Why is it that we've got Medicare being taken apart by this Medicare Advantage scam and nobody will do anything about it? Well, it turns out the reason why it boils down to one thing, one Supreme Court decision, Citizens United, legalizing the bribery of our politicians. There's a whole rant about this over at HartmannReport.com. I think you're going to find it very, very useful. Check it out.
Once upon a vote, she vanished in the smoke. There's a chill in the ballot box tonight. A whisper in red and blue light. She's drifting through alleys and lies, with justice glowing in her eyes. They called her gone, they called her fake, but she rose up for freedom's sake. Democracy, boo. She's haunting Mar-a-Lago too. You can build your walls, deny what's true, but the ghost of truth will rattle you.
So
she floats past the golden towers glare, where billionaires pretend to care. She hums the songs they try to drown, and paints no kings on every crown.
So we could all hope that Trump and his billionaire buddies are haunted by the goddess of democracy as we head into this Halloween week. Back to your calls here, Alfredo in Mountain View, California. Hey, Alfredo, what's up?
Hey, I'm glad you're back, Tom. I was freaking out yesterday when
we were too.
Went off the air.
We were too. We couldn't figure it out. We called Comcast and they're like, "Oh, we see. We've got internet for you," and we're like, "We can't connect to it," and it was just wild. Anyway,
Well, I'm glad you're back. Anyway, the so-called the billionaires. We should be calling that's welfare for billionaires. What we have there right now. Every time they call us socialists, that is socialism, welfare for billionaires. But anyway, the purpose of my call is MSNBC had Mark Elias as a guest there, the attorney who is fighting for democracy there, and he was making the point that blue states need to get 30 seats from the House in all seven blue states in order to capture the House on the elections.
You mean via gerrymandering?
With that. Correct, yeah, by gerrymandering. And I happen to agree with that assessment because he says we need to go all the way and grab as many seats as we can, because if we don't, the game is over. Yep. And I want to get your thoughts on that. Yeah.
I think he's right. On the one hand, I think he's right. On the other hand, the Republicans, and there's not a lot of people saying this, so I'm saying this without great certainty, but it seems logical to me. The way that the Republicans are getting rid of some of the Democratic seats is by moving those Democratic voters into districts that are more solidly red, that are more heavily Republican. Well, in a wave election, that might actually work against them. It might cause, particularly in Texas, it might cause some of those Republicans who are in districts that were, say 12-point Republican districts, which have now been shrunk down to 7 or 8-point Republican districts because Democratic voters have been moved into them as they're cracking, the Democratic districts. In a wave election that can push, 10 points as a wave over, it might make some of those Republican districts more vulnerable than they were before. And,
I happen to, I'm sorry, go ahead. No, I agree with you with that assessment. I think what they're underestimating is the fact that many Republicans now are not going to vote for Trump. Yeah. Which is why they're resorting to rigging the elections.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah. His numbers are on the 20s now, I think.
Well, it depends on the poll. Actually, his numbers aren't that different than where they were in his first year, which is a little scary because he made it through 4 years. They're slightly lower, but mostly in most measurements are in the 30s. And he still has 91% approval among Republicans, and that's the only thing he's looking at.
Yeah.
It's just that the number of people who identify as Republicans is shrinking.
Yes, that's true. I think the last poll I saw was 27% approval, I think.
Yeah. Well, I didn't see that one. The last I saw was 34% approval on the economy, 41% approval overall. I think that was, Nate Silver's kind of poll of polls.
I'm looking at a Free Speech TV poll, and it says he dropped from 44% to 27% approval.
Whoa. Okay.
Wow. Yeah.
I'll take it.
Okay. Thank you so much, Tom.
Yeah. Good talking to you, Alfredo. Thanks a lot for the call. I'm very concerned. I'm very worried. We have to redouble our activities, and at the same time, I really think 250 years of a functioning democracy, I realize it's never been even close to perfect, but 250 years of democracy is a hell of a lot more important than the, 5 years of democracy that Putin had before he took over Russia, or the 12 years that Orban had. I think we're going to do good.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free, and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com.
We say fight back!
Book today is Midnight in Chernobyl, the untold story of the world's greatest nuclear disaster by Adam Higginbotham. This is from the prologue. Saturday, April 26, 1986, 4:16 p.m., Chernobyl Atomic Energy Station, Ukraine. Senior Lieutenant Alexander Logachev loved radiation the way other men love their wives. Tall and good-looking, 26 years old, with close-cropped dark hair and ice blue eyes, Logachev had joined the Soviet Army when he was still a boy. They had trained him well. The instructors from the military academy outside Moscow taught him with lethal poisons and unshielded radiation. He traveled to the testing grounds of Semipalatinsk in Kazakhstan and to the desolate East Urals trace, where the fallout from a clandestine radioactive accident still poisoned the landscape. Eventually, Logachev's training took him even to the remote and forbidden islands of Novaya Zemlya, high in the Arctic Circle, and ground zero for the detonation of the terrible Tsar Bomba, the largest thermonuclear device in history. Now, as the lead radiation reconnaissance officer of the 427th Red Banner Mechanized Regiment of the Kiev District Civil Defense Force, Logachev knew how to protect himself and his three-man crew from nerve agents, biological weapons, gamma rays, and hot particles, by doing their work just as the textbooks dictated, by trusting his dosimetry equipment, and, when necessary, reaching for the nuclear, bacterial, and chemical warfare medical kits stored in the cockpit of their armored car. But he also believed that the best protection was psychological. These men who allowed themselves to fear radiation were most at risk. But those who came to love and appreciate its spectral presence, to understand its caprices, could endure even the most intense gamma bombardment and emerge as healthy as before. As he sped through the suburbs of Kiev that morning at the head of a column of more than 30 vehicles summoned to an emergency at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, Logachev had every reason to feel confident. The spring air blowing through the hatches of his armored scout car carried the smell of the trees and the freshly cut grass. His men, gathered on the parade ground just the night before for their monthly inspection, were drilled and ready. At his feet, a battery of radiological detection instruments, including a newly installed electronic device twice as sensitive as the old model, murmured softly, revealing nothing unusual in the atmosphere around them. But as they finally approached the plant later that morning, it became clear that something extraordinary had happened. The alarm on the irradiation dosimeter first sounded as they passed the concrete signpost marking the perimeter of the power station grounds, and the lieutenant gave orders to stop the vehicle and log their findings. 51 roentgens per hour. If they waited here just 60 minutes, they would all absorb the maximum dose of radiation permitted Soviet troops during wartime. They drove on, following the line of high-voltage transmission towers that marched toward the horizon in the direction of the power plant. Their readings climbed still further before falling again. Then, as the armored car rumbled along the concrete bank of the station's cooling canal, the outline of the fourth unit of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant finally became visible, and Logachev and his crew gazed at it in silence. The roof of the 20-story building had been torn open, its other upper levels blackened and collapsed into heaps of rubble. They could see shattered panels of ferroconcrete, tumbled blocks of graphite, and here and there the glittering metal casings of fuel assemblies from the core of a nuclear reactor. A cloud of steam drifted from the wreckage into the sunlit sky. Yet they had orders to conduct a full reconnaissance of the plant. Their armored car crawled counterclockwise around the complex at 10 kilometers an hour. Sergeant Vlaskin called out the radiation readings from the new instruments, and Logoshev scribbled them down on a map, hand-drawn on a sheet of parchment paper in ballpoint pen and colored marker. 1 rochin per hour, then 2, then 3. They turned left, and the figures began to rise quickly. 10, 30, 50, 100. 250 rochins an hour, the sergeant shouted, his eyes widening. Comrade Lieutenant, he began, and pointed at the radiometer. Logoshev looked down at the digital readout and felt his scalp prickle with terror. 2,080 rochins an hour, an impossible number. Logoshev struggled to remain calm and remember the textbook, to conquer his fear. But his training failed him, and the lieutenant heard himself screaming in panic at the driver, petrified that the vehicle would stall. Why are you going this way, you son of a bee? Are you out of your effing mind? If this thing dies, we'll all be corpses in 15 minutes. Part 1, Chapter 1, the Soviet Prometheus. At the slow beat of approaching rotor blades, black birds rose into the sky, scattering over the frozen meadows and the pearly knots of creeks and ponds lacing the Pripyat River basin. Far below, standing knee-deep in snow, his breath lingering in heavy clouds, Viktor Brukhanov awaited the arrival of the nomenklatura from Moscow. When the helicopter touched down, the delegation of ministers and Communist Party officials trudged together over the icy field. The savage cold gnawed at their heavy woolen coats and nipped beneath their tall fur hats. The head of the Ministry of Energy and Electrification of the USSR and senior party bosses from the Soviet Socialist Republic of Ukraine joined Brukhanov at the spot where their audacious new project was to begin. Just 34 years old, clever and ambitious, a dedicated party man, Brukhanov had come to Western Ukraine with orders to begin building what would become the greatest nuclear power station on Earth. Midnight at Chernobyl.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And welcome to the second hour of our program. On the line with us, our buddy, the investigative reporter, Guardian, New York Times author, The Best Democracy Money Can Buy, his new film, All Washed Away, about Katrina 20 years later, and Kerr County, Texas flood, and Trump's plan to shut down FEMA in December. Available over at Greg's Substack, Greg Palast's Substack, and his website, and you can watch it on YouTube. You can also watch his film Vigilantes, Inc., America's New Vote Suppression Hitmen, narrated by Rosaria Dawson, produced by Martin Sheen, in the above places. GregPalast.com, GregPalast.bluesky.social, and Greg_Palast on Twitter. Greg, welcome back to the program.
Glad to be with you, Tom.
Great to have you. We just blew up apparently a couple more alleged drug boats off the coast of either Colombia or Venezuela. I'm not sure which. Just seeing the reports on MSNBC. You knew Hugo Chavez and you knew President Maduro.
Yes.
Of Venezuela.
Yes.
And also we're seeing reports, by the way, that Maduro is saying that he just foiled a false flag attack, that the CIA, a CIA-funded criminal cell was going to attack the USS Gravely, a naval destroyer that's in Trinidad. He says this is just like this. He says it's the same imperial script as the Maine ship. Remember the Maine World War, the Spanish-American War, and the Gulf of Tonkin, fabricating a conflict.
Tonkin. Yes, exactly.
So what's going on here? What's the deal with us in Venezuela?
Okay. And by the way, if you go to my Substack today, you'll see my story about Venezuela. And I also have another film to watch, The Assassination of Hugo Chavez. He wasn't actually killed, just so you know, which you can download for free again or watch at gregpalast.com or YouTube. The Assassination
Greg,
of Chavez.
Sorry to interrupt you, but your audio is really funky right now, and it wasn't just a few minutes ago when Sean tested with you.
Okay, how about this? Is this better? Sorry.
Well, you just keep on going. It sounds the same, but yeah, go ahead.
All right. I'm sorry about that. Okay. Yeah, I don't know what's going on here. Let me just see. Sorry. Okay. Now, if three things you have to know about Venezuela. They have the largest reserves of oil on the planet. Second, they have the largest reserves of oil on the planet. And third, they have the largest reserves of oil on the planet. According to OPEC, it's literally, they have 4 times as much oil as Saudi Arabia. So let me tell you something. If Venezuela's main export were broccoli, we wouldn't be blowing up boats and talking about removing their president, okay? That's pretty simple. And so, yes, I was a BBC television reporter assigned to cover Venezuela, and by the way, and Trinidad. And these boats that they were blowing up, even little Marco Rubio said that the boats were headed from Venezuela to Trinidad, which is only 7 miles across the water. It's like here in LA, we go to Catalina. These are commuters, workers, and the people that we've been able to identify are absolutely not drug dealers. When have you ever seen a U.S. prosecutor grab a drug boat and not show you the drugs, not give you the names of the drug dealers, not show you the guns and the weapons? Because these are literally just commuters between Trinidad and Venezuela. Yes, they got a couple of real drug boats, no question. But those are coming out of Venezuela up the Pacific coast. Venezuela does not have any seafront on the Pacific Ocean, only the Caribbean. But it's all about this oil. Chevron is dying to get its hands on the oil. They're there, and Trump has said unless there's a regime change, they will not be allowed to take their oil out of Venezuela. Exxon wants oil back. They left the country. So it's about, guess what? It's about the oil. And, that's what it's about.
Do you think Maduro's charge that the CIA was plotting a false flag attack on one of the destroyers, the U.S. destroyers in the region?
Yeah, I understand. This is our 4th attempt to remove the elected government of Venezuela. Remember, the U.S. was behind or supported the kidnapping of Hugo Chavez in 2002, which the U.S. government thought if we kidnapped Chavez, the people would rise up against him. They'd be so happy that this dictator was gone. In fact, it was like the Bay of Pigs. We literally had a couple 100,000 people surround the coup plotters in the presidential palace. And I talked with Chavez actually through his people while he was kidnapped.
Louise and I were there the day that happened.
Yes.
Louise and I were in Venezuela.
In Caracas.
No, we were actually on a cruise ship, and it docked there the day that happened. Just total coincidence. Anyhow, back to you.
So what's happened is we keep now. One thing to understand: Hugo Chavez, despite what the U.S. State Department said, was incredibly popular. I actually was also not only was I basically a friend of Hugo Chavez. I tend not to be friends of politicians, but I was also close with Maduro, the current president. And I got to tell you, Chavez was very popular. He was elected by landslides. I don't care what the State Department said, but I got to tell you, I'm sorry, my progressive friends, Maduro stole the last election. He won his first 2, but the last one he did lose. He won't leave office. My good friend, has become a dictator. Now, he visited me in New York, but a dictator's a dictator. I don't care, and I have to say so. But we're not talking, if you're talking about removing dictators who are moving drugs, according to the latest New Yorker investigation, the big drug cartel running coke into the United States is based in Abu Dhabi. Remember we're talking about the Emirates, which gave $2 billion to Trump buying his coins. They gave him a 747, not to the U.S. government, but personally to Donald Trump. And so they're not being overthrown.
Well, wait a second. How does Qatar provide drugs to the United States? They're in the Middle East.
It's the Kinahan organized drug gang, which is, so if you read the United Nations World Drug Report, they say Venezuela is just not a source of production or distribution of drugs because obviously they're on the Caribbean. There's no way that an intelligent drug dealer is going to involve the Venezuelan government in this type of activity. Mm-hmm. So the Kinahan organized drug cartel is run out of Abu Dhabi. Read the latest New Yorker. and but not Chavez or Maduro. So the question is, do we want to remove a head of state by bullets or by ballots? And that's what I think we need to work on, that issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, wow, what do we do with this, Greg? I mean, how I get it that, you know, it seems like there's two separate issues here. Number one is that Donald Trump killing these people in these boats, these people who are commuting back and forth between Trinidad and Venezuela, the 7-mile stretch of water there. You know, that is a crime. That is murder on the high seas, as the president of Pinto, I think his name is, or Pina, the president of Colombia.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, has pointed out. So you've got that.
And by the way, the government of Trinidad and the president of Trinidad, by the way, is a big Trump fan.
Yeah.
But she said, you killed 2 of our citizens, these kids who are just commuting to work from Venezuela.
Right.
And that's a real close Trump ally.
And we had their names for that was like a 3-hour story here in the American media.
Yeah, I'm looking for their names, but it's one Indian descent kid, because that's typical in Trinidad, and an African and a Trinidadian African. And they were just, you know, these are kids who were killed because they were commuting to work. But the key thing, again, is the attempt to seize oil. And I should say, by the way, according to the Wall Street Journal, the Trump administration, on background to the Journal, was very direct. We're either going to kidnap or kill Maduro. We're going to change their president. The problem is we could end up with another Bay of Pigs like we did in 2002 in Venezuela, or like as we did in Cuba, where Venezuelans may not like Maduro right now because the economy is devastated by the U.S. embargo, which doesn't allow their oil out and doesn't allow oil equipment in to keep the oil flowing. They're down to 700,000 barrels a day of production versus the 2.4 million barrels a day they used to have. Now, why do we care? Because that's about I'm an energy economist by training and statistician, and I can tell you it's roughly between 50 cents and $1 added to the pump price of our gas. So we have done that by creating an embargo on Venezuela, where we've lost 2 million barrels a day of potential production into the world supply. This is serious stuff. So I think that Trump's idea is that we'll get a hold of the oil, the price of gasoline will come down, and he'll be reelected to his 3rd term.
I understand that, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, that the only major refinery in the United States that can refine this heavy kind of tar-like oil that comes out of Venezuela is owned by the Koch family, Charles Koch and his family.
Well, yes.
If that's true, why is he not leaning on Trump, or is he leaning on Trump? I mean, does that play a role in this?
I've been following the Kochs for a while. Obviously, they would do very, very well if we got a hold of that oil, because they took over the Sun Oil refineries on the Texas coast, which were specifically designed just to refine Venezuelan super heavy oil. It's really gunky stuff, and only a few refineries can do it. Also, a couple Citgo refineries, which were owned by the government of Venezuela. The U.S. government actually seized Citgo refineries and gave it to this guy, Juan Guaido, a white guy who was living in Washington, that we tried to foist on Venezuela as president. In the end, he never ran, because you have to understand it's a black and Indian mestizo nation. And until Chavez, they never had one of their own. It was always a white president. So they're not going to go back to an apartheid system. But again, Maduro is unpopular because of the embargo. And imagine, by the way, if Texas were told you can't sell your oil outside of Texas, you can't get any supplies.
Yeah. Greg Abbott would melt down. Yeah, I get it. Greg, so, you always bring the goods. Thank you so much for illuminating this issue for us. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome, Tom. Thank you.
And if you stick around for about 5 minutes, you'll hear your little song there. Thanks a lot, Greg.
Sing along.
There you go. 18 minutes past the hour.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. Tom in Media, Pennsylvania. Hey, Tom, you're on the air. What's up?
Yes, Tom. You know, I do share really big concerns. I don't want to see us getting into a war with Venezuela. I think it's a poor use of our Navy when our Coast Guard can protect against these boats if they're actually coming over.
Well, they're not. They were going to Trinidad.
I know. But
there's no way those little boats could travel the what is it, 1,600 miles to Florida? Not going to happen.
Yeah. Okay. Well, okay. I'm saying that I'm concerned, but I'm saying that to say that Venezuela is not a narco-terrorist organization just because of Greg Palast. I mean, Greg Palast, to me, Tom, you got to get better sources. He is such an unabashed apologist for Venezuela. And my gosh, Chavez.
What he just said? He just said that Maduro stole the election.
Yes, and that's the first time, Tom, that he even mentioned that.
No, it's not the first time. He said that pretty much every conversation I've had with him on the air about Venezuela. Tom, you got it wrong, and I'm just going to move along. Diane in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Hey, Diane, what's on your mind today? Diane in Ann Arbor.
Oops, did you hear? Hi, Tom.
You are on the air. What's up?
Okay. Can Congress be closed down for more than 3 days without congressional approval? Are they doing something illegal by keeping it?
The Constitution says that neither House of Congress, the House nor the Senate, shall close for more than 3 days without the permission of the other. And the Senate has not given the House permission to close or to remain closed. Doesn't mean that it wouldn't be coming if it ever went to court or something like that. Although it'd be interesting.
They haven't done it.
They have not done it, no.
They haven't done it.
Correct.
Yes, they're breaking the law.
That's right.
Here's something interesting. Is it there, when you're doing your taxes, and say you don't have the money to pay your taxes, can you get a deferment, or is there some kind of a paperwork you can do for a deferment?
Yes. Yeah, the IRS will you know, if you genuinely have a problem, they'll work with you, generally speaking.
If you right, but if you go there, it's not illegal. You're doing everything above board. This is the paperwork you fill out, and this is your privilege as a taxpayer of America.
I don't know the details of it, Diane. I've never been in that situation, so I have no personal experience with it.
Could you, do you know any people who do taxes that could, I'm sure there's something where you can report.
Are you in a bind? Is that why you're asking?
No, I'm thinking, you know, how about no taxation without representation? Are we being represented right now? Absolutely not. And I'm just saying, if this continues, this rogue way of doing things, maybe we just need to pull things back in to lawfulness by saying, okay, if you're not going to represent us, then it's lawful that we don't pay our taxes. If enough people did this deferment, you know, it's not that they're not going to get it. It's just a kind of a call to attention.
Yeah.
And we do it legally.
Diane, that's probably the most reasonable suggestion that I've heard so far about how we might, blue states, for example, might withhold taxes from Trump. But I just don't see it happening. I don't think most people really want to call up the IRS and get on their radar screen, you know. I just don't see it happening.
This is something you do with your accountant. I think they fill out this form.
Yeah, I doubt your accountant would recommend it either.
It's all legal and proper. It's all legal and proper, but maybe it's a way of getting their attention and call it the second revolution.
It could be, Diane, but I'm very skeptical. Diane, thanks for the call. We'll be right back. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. Did you know that the ancient Roman Republic, which for 480 years was actually a democratic republic before Julius Caesar kind of ended the democracy phase and replaced it with the autocracy phase, that they were brought down by a very small group of very rich people. The richest man in ancient Rome was Marcus Licinius Crassus. He was the richest guy, the billionaire of Rome. And he frankly hated the Roman free bread for all welfare system. It was being paid for with his tax dollars, after all. So him and Pompey the Great and a few other rich guys got together, and they basically crashed Rome. They turned it into an oligarchy and then into a tyranny. And the parallels to what Trump is doing right now are absolutely shocking. There's an article about it over at HartmannReport.com titled American Caesar, Trump's Path to Power Mirrors Rome's Darkest Days. Check it out.
They said it was a fair fight, democracy at play. But behind the curtain, shadows stole the day. Perched from the rows, voices erased. An election twisted, democracy disgraced. But Greg Palast hit the trail with truth as his guide, exposing the schemes they tried to hide. He followed the balance, the games they spun, proving one clear fact: Trump lost, suppression won.
There you go. 25 minutes past the hour. Is corruption the new American dream? A nation built on the gospel of the grift? This is the op-ed that I published at Hartmann Report yesterday. And, the point of it is that if you look at, and the UN has these statistics, the World Bank has these statistics, if you look at the economy of Russia, about a quarter, somewhere between 20 and 25% of the total economic activity of that country has been basically seized by Putin and oligarchs close to Putin. And an awful lot of it is being skimmed off the top. Same thing with Hungary. With Hungary, it's 15 to 20%. And that's the model that the Heritage Foundation apparently is using with Project 2025, and that Donald Trump is certainly using with his administration, where there's a reason why all these CEOs, one after another, walked up to Donald Trump and handed him, here's Tim Cook. Oh, may I please give you this piece of gold, Mr. Trump? Please do away with our tariffs. Oh, yes, of course, I'll do that for you. No problem. Here's a $16 billion tax break for you, son. Just give me another gold, this is nuts. And this is America right now, where we've got a president who's demanding tribute. You got a foreign dictator giving him a $400 million jet, and now we're spending $1 billion to outfit it so that when he leaves office, he'll have his own fancy little 747. Nice work if you can get it. But we all pay for this. This kind of corruption destroys economies. It doesn't just, it destroys faith in democracy, of course. But it's not just that, it also ruins economies. Another aspect of it is, Trump putting up with monopoly, the growth of monopolies, which again destroys economies and makes it harder for small business people. We got to stop this stuff. We got to clean this government up.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Trump said he was going to drain the swamp. Ha! He has filled it with his people. We'll be right back. Book today is Midnight in Chernobyl, the untold story of the world's greatest nuclear disaster by Adam Higginbotham. This is from the prologue. Saturday, April 26, 1986, 4:16 p.m., Chernobyl Atomic Energy Station, Ukraine. Senior Lieutenant Alexander Logachev loved radiation the way other men love their wives. Tall and good-looking, 26 years old, with close-cropped dark hair and ice blue eyes, Logachev had joined the Soviet Army when he was still a boy. They had trained him well. The instructors from the military academy outside Moscow taught him with lethal poisons and unshielded radiation. He traveled to the testing grounds of Semipalatinsk in Kazakhstan and to the desolate East Urals trace, where the fallout from a clandestine radioactive accident still poisoned the landscape. Eventually, Logachov's training took him even to the remote and forbidden islands of Novaya Zemlya, high in the Arctic Circle, and ground zero for the detonation of the terrible Tsar Bomba, the largest thermonuclear device in history. Now, as the lead radiation reconnaissance officer of the 427th Red Banner Mechanized Regiment of the Kiev District Civil Defense Force, Logachev knew how to protect himself and his three-man crew from nerve agents, biological weapons, gamma rays, and hot particles by doing their work just as the textbooks dictated, by trusting his dosimetry equipment, and, when necessary, reaching for the nuclear, bacterial, and chemical warfare medical kits stored in the cockpit of their armored car. But he also believed that the best protection was psychological. These men who allowed themselves to fear radiation were most at risk. But those who came to love and appreciate its spectral presence, to understand its caprices, could endure even the most intense gamma bombardment and emerge as healthy as before. As he sped through the suburbs of Kiev that morning at the head of a column of more than 30 vehicles summoned to an emergency at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, Logachev had every reason to feel confident. The spring air blowing through the hatches of his armored scout car carried the smell of the trees and the freshly cut grass. His men, gathered on the parade ground just the night before for their monthly inspection, were drilled and ready. At his feet, a battery of radiological detection instruments, including a newly installed electronic device twice as sensitive as the old model, murmured softly, revealing nothing unusual in the atmosphere around them. But as they finally approached the plant later that morning, it became clear that something extraordinary had happened. The alarm on the radiation dosimeter first sounded as they passed the concrete signpost marking the perimeter of the power station grounds, and the lieutenant gave orders to stop the vehicle and log their findings. 51 roentgens per hour. If they waited here just 60 minutes, they would all absorb the maximum dose of radiation permitted Soviet troops during wartime. They drove on, following the line of high-voltage transmission towers that marched toward the horizon in the direction of the power plant. Their readings climbed still further before falling again. Then, as the armored car rumbled along the concrete bank of the station's cooling canal, the outline of the fourth unit of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant finally became visible, and Logachev and his crew gazed at it in silence. The roof of the 20-story building had been torn open, its other upper levels blackened and collapsed into heaps of rubble. They could see shattered panels of ferroconcrete, tumbled blocks of graphite, and here and there the glittering metal casings of fuel assemblies from the core of a nuclear reactor. A cloud of steam drifted from the wreckage into the sunlit sky. Yet they had orders to conduct a full reconnaissance of the plant. Their armored car crawled counterclockwise around the complex at 10 kilometers an hour. Sergeant Vlaskin called out the radiation readings from the new instruments, and Logachev scribbled them down on a map, hand-drawn on a sheet of parchment paper in ballpoint pen and colored marker. 1 roentgen per hour, then 2, then 3. They turned left and the figures began to rise quickly. 10, 30, 50, 100. 250 roentgens an hour, the sergeant shouted, his eyes widening. Comrade Lieutenant, he began, and pointed at the radiometer. Logachev looked down at the digital readout and felt his scalp prickle with terror. 2,080 roentgens an hour, an impossible number. Logachev struggled to remain calm and remember the textbook, to conquer his fear. But his training failed him, and the lieutenant heard himself screaming in panic at the driver, petrified that the vehicle would stall. Why are you going this way, you son of a bee? Are you out of your effing mind? If this thing dies, we'll all be corpses in 15 minutes. Part 1, Chapter 1, The Soviet Prometheus. At the slow beat of approaching rotor blades, black birds rose into the sky, scattering over the frozen meadows and the pearly knots of creeks and ponds lacing the Pripyat River basin. Far below, standing knee-deep in snow, his breath lingering in heavy clouds, Viktor Brukhanov awaited the arrival of the nomenklatura from Moscow. When the helicopter touched down, the delegation of ministers and Communist Party officials trudged together over the icy field. The savage cold gnawed at their heavy woolen coats and nipped beneath their tall fur hats. The head of the Ministry of Energy and Electrification of the USSR and senior party bosses from the Soviet Socialist Republic of Ukraine joined Brukhanov at the spot where their audacious new project was to begin. Just 34 years old, clever and ambitious, a dedicated party man, Brukhanov had come to western Ukraine with orders to begin building what would become the greatest nuclear power station on Earth. Midnight at Chernobyl. Share the Thom Hartmann program with your friends. Our podcast, The Hartmann Report, is absolutely free and available wherever fine podcasts are available. And the entire 3-hour podcast is available over at thomhartmann.com. They called it blood libel, what the Germans were doing against the Jews, claiming that they were using the blood of Christian children to make their matzah. We've got a new blood libel now here in the United States. J.D. Vance and Donald Trump lying through their teeth, arguing that black Haitian immigrants to the United States, legal immigrants with green cards in this little town in Ohio, are eating pets. This is another libel that goes way back. In the 1890s, people were claiming German and Dutch immigrants were eating pets. Then they claimed in the 1880s, and actually as recently as last year, a restaurant got shut down in California because of claims that they were serving pets. They weren't. But it was an Asian restaurant. This is just evil stuff, these lies and spreading this kind of hate. And this is now the strategy that the Republicans are using. There's a whole article about it at HartmannReport.com, Hate as a Political Weapon. Check it out.
They built their tower out of fear and gold, sold out the truth for the lies they told. The flags still wave, but the stars don't gleam. There's blood in the gears of the old machine. Is corruption the American dream, where money's the god and power redeems? The deal goes down while the people sleep. Freedom don't come cheap.
36 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. Think ICE is bad now? Wait until the Customs and Border Patrol takes over. CBP. Garrett Graff wrote this piece for doomsdayscenario.co. And he talks about how back in 2014, he did an in-depth article titled The Green Monster. He says, I interviewed every single one of the people who served as commissioners of Customs and Border Protection for a 2014 piece called The Green Monster. The Border Patrol at the time was the most deadly federal law enforcement agency in the country. People shot in the back, unarmed, or across the border in Mexico. The Border Patrol has a much longer, darker, and more militaristic history than the still new ICE. And he points out that this is important because basically there's a power struggle going on inside the DHS right now between ICE and CBP. And Corey Lewandowski, who is Kristi Noem's alleged boyfriend, the two are flying around the country in her brand new private jets, having an affair apparently. And Greg Bovino, this Border Patrol executive who is in court right now, or was earlier today in Chicago, apparently for violating court orders, like throwing a tear gas canister at some protesters against a court order. That they want Bovino, they want CPB, he's Customs and Border Patrol, CPB. They want CPB to take control of ICE because ICE isn't being aggressive enough. I mean, this is, and this guy, Bovino, he's like the Ernst Röhm of our time, at least according to Garrett Graff, according to this article. And according to Governor J.B. Pritzker of Illinois, he said, quote, Donald Trump, Stephen Miller, Kristi Noem, Thom Hartmann, and Greg Bovino have failed their oaths of office and allowed agents under their command to act unconscionably under the color of law. They have given the impression that their actions are immune from investigation or accountability. They are not. He has formed a commission to document the abuses of this bunch. And now he's, Bovino, he's the guy who quote, next, Bovino was the force behind the controversial military-backed show of force by the Border Patrol in LA's MacArthur Park. Agents on horseback marched through the park where kids were playing soccer. Better get used to this now because this is going to be normal very soon, Bovino told Fox News. And now he's up, front and center with Chicago. So it's getting wild out there. It's getting absolutely wild. Back to your calls here. Allie in Buffalo Grove, Illinois. Hey, Allie, what's up?
Tom, I'm so happy to talk to you. I've been listening since the Air America days.
Well, thank you.
Oh, I learned something every day. I'm reporting in you know how you were talking about the big raise in health insurance?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, our great governor, J.B. Pritzker, now we are not going to be on healthcare.gov in Illinois. They've created our own marketplace, Get Covered Illinois.
Oh, really?
And as of yesterday, yes.
Is this brand new?
Yeah, and I'm not, I'm sorry?
Is this brand new?
It is brand new, and I'm not completely sure the reason, but I know that Governor Pritzker has wanted to kind of shield us from some of the worst of stuff. But yesterday, well, you know, you can't enroll officially till November 1st, but yesterday we were able to get on and compare plans and see what things were cost. Now, I signed up for the Affordable Care Act the day it started. But as you know, death by 1,000 cuts, price keeps going up, going up, going up. My current premium has been, on a silver plan, $470 a month. And that's with the good subsidies. So now I go in and I look at, I can't look at the HSA plans because they all have super high deductibles, really, really high out of pocket. So mine has been a very good plan, $200 deductible and $900 out of pocket max. I mean, that's okay.
You could deal with that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But now, here, I was able to go through and just kind of press the buttons to see, you know, kind of as if you were checking out. My monthly premium before any tax credit would have been $1,954.
Wow.
And I am actually...
That's a quadrupling of your price.
Yes. Then they show, monthly tax credit. I'm actually able to get a little more next year, supposedly, allegedly. We'll see. I doubt it. Of $800 and something. I would still, with a subsidy, be asked to pay $1,100 a month. I can't do it.
Wow.
I'm not quite sure why that is doing that. I'm assuming the insurance companies raise the prices because they assume we're not getting the subsidy.
Well, they're raising the prices also because their executives are not happy with, you know, $2, $3, $5, $10 million paychecks. They want $15, $20, $25 million paychecks. After all, you know, the first CEO of United Healthcare walked away with $1.6 billion. And the current CEO has a half $500 million. Yeah, so they, you know, it's not just a Rolls Royce; it's a new chalet in Switzerland. You know, so you know these guys are fabulously rich, and they're buying back their own stocks and things like this. So, you know, it's a ripoff. This is why it was so unfortunate that when Obama wanted to do a national health care plan, he chose the plan that the Heritage Foundation had put together for Ronald Reagan back in the day, that Reagan just never did, which was what we call Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. It was entirely based on for-profit health insurance companies. And he was one vote away from, and if he had fought for it, he would have gotten a public option. In other words, you could buy Medicare at any age as an alternative. And, you know, he caved in because of Joe Lieberman, if you'll recall, you know, who was from Connecticut and was heavily funded by the insurance industry. Yeah, bought off Joe Lieberman. So, you know, it's really tragic, but, you know, here we are. So
it is very tragic. And they do say, now I'm going to have to go to Medicaid. The interesting thing is, in Illinois, you have quite a few options, quite a few plans. One of them is called Blue Cross Community Plan. Interestingly, that will cover more than my current
And
insurance.
that's not via the ACA. That's just buying it from Blue Cross.
Not via the ACA. That's just one of the health choice, you know, if you go, I don't have the exact website, Health Choices of Illinois.
Yeah.
And I looked at all of my doctors and even the medications I take.
That's
but,
amazing.
of course, we don't know if that rug's going to get pulled out from underneath.
Yeah, no, just, hang on. Eventually it will. I mean, you know, we've had Blue Cross
In 2027.
for years here, you know, for my staff. We provide health insurance. And, boy, the prices have exploded over the last 8 or 9 years. I mean, it's just because we've been doing it for 20 years. It's just shocking what's happened. Allie, I got to run. I'm sorry. I got to move along. But thank you for the call and thanks for the update. I appreciate it. Hills in Ventura, California. Hey, Hills, what's up?
Good morning. I'm listening on KPFK LA. Excellent radio. Yes. I'm wondering what you think about the idea that struck me out of frustration with the Supreme Court and, Citizens United, et cetera, that you've educated us on. Maybe the next big demonstration should be on the steps of the Supreme Court.
That makes a lot of sense. I think that I think that at least some, I think that Thomas and Alito are just, bought off corrupt hacks, and Alito may even be a pro-Nazi hack. But I think that, Kavanaugh certainly hates Democrats after what he was put through in his hearings. He swore vengeance. But I think Amy Coney Barrett and maybe Neil Gorsuch, of course, he felt like his mother was persecuted by Democrats. But I think that the ones who aren't just partisan hacks are actually afraid of Donald Trump. And I think it would be better if they realized how hostile public opinion is toward their behavior. Not that I want any kind of physical threat against them, but they really need to know. This is 1/3 of our government. This is the third branch of government. They really need to know that people are not happy with them. Hills, thanks for the call. Great suggestion. And thanks for listening on KPFK. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
And FYI, for those of you who might just be hitting 65 or whatever, Medicare Advantage plans are a ripoff. Be very, very careful when these things come on your TV. And welcome back. Janet in Bainbridge Island, Washington. Hey, Janet, what's on your mind today?
Oh, good morning to you.
Hey.
Greg Palast was on my mind when I called a long time ago. Had a wonderful conversation with your call screener. I just wanted to add, the competition or the whatever it is about Venezuela goes well back to Cuba and the revolution that happened in Cuba that sent so many wonderful citizens to Florida, who are so powerful. So in our American politics, I just wanted to add that.
Good point.
Having Rubio in the cabinet is sort of a crowning touch.
Although his parents came over before the Cuban Revolution. They came over in 56 or 7, as I recall.
No, I think they fled at the time of the Cuban Revolution. They did not want to live.
I can pretty much guarantee you that is
country. But at any rate, quickly, just quickly, the Venezuelan issue, of course, is like sometimes the United States allows Venezuela to pump oil, and sometimes it doesn't. And miraculously, when the United States doesn't allow it to pump oil, suddenly there's horrible famine in Venezuela. So it's like they're on a machine that we are their only source of oxygen. And whenever it suits the purpose of a Republican in power to jerk them around, he does.
Yeah. By the way, just for the record, Mario and Ornelas Rubio arrived in the United States in May of 1956. Batista was still president. This was 2 years before the Cuban Revolution. So, but Rubio himself has repeatedly said in his campaign bio and on the trail that his parents came, quote, following Fidel Castro's takeover, which was a lie. So that's why you believe that, because you listened to Marco Rubio and thought he was telling the truth. He was lying about his own parents.
Oh, isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
Isn't that wonderful?
There you go.
Oh well.
No, I get it, but I think your history on Venezuela is right, Janet. Janet, thank you very much, and thanks for the call. Susan in Redding, California. Hey, Susan, what's on your mind today?
Oh, hi. Thanks for taking my call. We were talking about taxes and money and trying to figure out a way for American people to fight back financially. But I was thinking, protesting, getting out in the streets is really all fine and well, but I was thinking about using our finances. Like Jimmy Kimmel, everybody talks about everybody was protesting, but really what got him back on the air was everybody started pulling their the plug on their
subscriptions. Yeah.
Subscriptions, and then so it was money.
Mm-hmm.
And then like the civil rights movement with the Montgomery boycott, that all changed because of money. Everybody just stayed off the buses and they lost money, and then it went to...
So where's our lever now, Susan? I know people are saying boycott Black Friday. I'm not sure that'll be enough, but do you have a suggestion?
No, I don't think it's going to... No, I was just thinking... It's too bad the Democratic Party couldn't make a list of the companies and where the money's going, and then, like we went after Target, just start little by little, as best you can, boycotting these companies until they start feeling
That's
it
a good idea,
financially.
Susan. I would argue that you should just pick one to make, to be the poster child as an example, and then, after that, another one so that you can maximize your impact. But I think you're right. Susan, thank you. That was a very thoughtful suggestion. Appreciate it. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. Way back in 1964, when Lyndon Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, the Republicans started this rant about how the election of 1960, Jock Kennedy stole that election, and there's voter fraud in America. And it became a thing. They started this thing called Operation Eagle Eye. William Rehnquist was running it in Arizona. Trying to intimidate Hispanics and African Americans into not voting, essentially. They've now used this claim that non-citizens are voting, this voter fraud claim, in virtually every red state to make it harder to vote, to purge people off the voting rolls, to make people's votes not counted with their exact signature matches. It's a scam. It's a grift that they've been running for 60 years, and the American media won't call them out on it. There's a whole piece about it called Trump and the GOP's Big Lie 2.0 over at HartmannReport.com. Please check it out. You'll find it fascinating. It's Halloween.
Welcome to the Castle of Lies. In a golden tower high above the fear, Count Magala whispers in your ear. He drinks from headlines, feeds on fame. No mirror shows his shame.
He sleeps in silk and tweets all night. The truth turns pale beneath his bite.
Count Magala's biting facts tonight, sunken logic out of candlelight. He turns red caps into crimson capes as democracy escapes.
Count Magula. Indeed.
He hates the light.
Oh, what a week. They're going to force me to wear a costume, too, on Friday, I understand. Jude in Rio Rancho, New Mexico. Hey, Jude, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. I'm calling about the cell phones as spies. I, too, watched Rachel Maddow, and I was petrified as I was listening. And so my question is that I want to pose to you and everybody who's listening is, what can we possibly do? Can we turn off our phones? Will that stop them, or do we get burner phones? And I'm not just talking when we go to demonstrations and protests. She was making it clear in our homes. I'm on all kinds of Democratic lists. I mean, they know, my name shows up everywhere. And so, they can turn on my microphone, they can turn on the camera, they know my location. And I just wonder, rather than feeling so helpless with this thing in my hand and in my pocket, what can we do? Should we get burner phones? Should we find a new network? I don't know.
Jude, as far as first of all, if you're not breaking the law, generally speaking, I'm reluctant to say that just that glibly, because the other point Rachel made last night, which is the point that Stalin's chief of his secret police, I forget his name now, used to say, he'd say, show me the man, I'll show you the crime.
Exactly.
That, pretty much everybody has done something wrong or something that's close enough to wrong that it could be exploded into, look at what they're going after, Comey and Letitia James and stuff for, check the wrong box on a mortgage application. Right. We're all vulnerable. There's nobody who's not vulnerable. But that said, I think the solution is to elect Democrats. I mean, Joe Biden outlawed this software, and Donald Trump authorized it for ICE. That should tell you the whole thing. I mean, this is a political problem. This software is not going to go away. It's been around for a long time. And by the way, it's not the only piece of spyware out there that can be used like this, at a government level. Pegasus is probably the most famous. But they're also using what do they call it? Stingrays. These are devices that appear to be a cell tower. They transmit on the same frequencies as cell towers. They use all the protocols of cell towers, and they pass through internet data, and telephone calls. So if your phone is in the vicinity of one of these things, it hooks up with the Stingray thing, and it thinks it's talking to a cell tower because on the other side of the Stingray, there's an actual cell tower that you're actually talking to through the Stingray. And all the Stingray does is intercept every bit of data on your phone. And I used to tell this story when I was broadcasting from D.C. I'd walk by the White House, and my phone would drop 15% on my battery in just 4-block walk. And it's because they had Stingray things. Now, I never figured out if it was the federal government Stingraying everybody who came near the White House, or whether it was Russian spies, across the street from the White House, Stingraying everything in the White House. I just, I never knew. And I don't think anybody knows. But ICE is also using Stingrays, and they're using them at protests. So, if you don't want them to know that you're there, just leave the phone at home, is the easiest solution. If you think that, it would be safer to have a phone with you, get a burner phone and put the phone numbers of it that you don't have memorized that are real important to you into it. But, beyond that, I think what we need is a political solution. We need to be calling all of our politicians. You need to call your member of the House in New Mexico. You need to call both of your senators and say, what's the deal with Stingrays and Pegasus? I don't think that ICE should be using these things against us. And they're clearly, this is clearly their plan and their actions. And, it's Congress needs to take some action. And I think this is the kind of thing where there may be I'd call Josh Hawley, in Missouri. He's one of the few Republicans who's actually talked about this. He, spoken out. Now, he hasn't spoken out specifically against ICE using them. He wrote his book and came out publicly about this stuff during the Biden presidency. But I think it's important that we reach out to our politicians. This is a political problem as well as a democracy problem and a spy problem. Make sense?
I agree with you. I like those suggestions. I think we, like us, typical citizens, average citizens, will be further down the road that they might come after now.
I get it. But we don't want to be in that position. Thank you, Jude.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com. book today is Midnight in Chernobyl, The Untold Story of the World's Greatest Nuclear Disaster by Adam Higginbotham. This is from the prologue. Saturday, April 26, 1986, 4:16 p.m., Chernobyl Atomic Energy Station, Ukraine. Senior Lieutenant Alexander Logachev loved radiation the way other men love their wives. Tall and good-looking, 26 years old, with close-cropped dark hair and ice-blue eyes, Logachev had joined the Soviet Army when he was still a boy. They had trained him well. The instructors from the military academy outside Moscow taught him with lethal poisons and unshielded radiation. He traveled to the testing grounds of Semipalatinsk in Kazakhstan and to the desolate East Urals trace, where the fallout from a clandestine radioactive accident still poisoned the landscape. Eventually, Logachev's training took him even to the remote and forbidden islands of Novaya Zemlya, high in the Arctic Circle, and ground zero for the detonation of the terrible Tsar Bomba, the largest thermonuclear device in history. Now, as the lead radiation reconnaissance officer of the 427th Red Banner Mechanized Regiment of the Kiev District Civil Defense Force, Logachev knew how to protect himself and his three-man crew from nerve agents, biological weapons, gamma rays, and hot particles, by doing their work just as the textbooks dictated, by trusting his dosimetry equipment, and, when necessary, reaching for the nuclear, bacterial, and chemical warfare medical kits stored in the cockpit of their armored car. But he also believed that the best protection was psychological. These men who allowed themselves to fear radiation were most at risk. But those who came to love and appreciate its spectral presence, to understand its caprices, could endure even the most intense gamma bombardment and emerge as healthy as before. As he sped through the suburbs of Kiev that morning at the head of a column of more than 30 vehicles summoned to an emergency at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, Logachev had every reason to feel confident. The spring air blowing through the hatches of his armored scout car carried the smell of the trees and the freshly cut grass. His men, gathered on the parade ground just the night before for their monthly inspection, were drilled and ready. At his feet, a battery of radiological detection instruments, including a newly installed electronic device twice as sensitive as the old model, murmured softly, revealing nothing unusual in the atmosphere around them. But as they finally approached the plant later that morning, it became clear that something extraordinary had happened. The alarm on the irradiation dosimeter first sounded as they passed the concrete signpost marking the perimeter of the power station grounds, and the lieutenant gave orders to stop the vehicle and log their findings. 51 roentgens per hour. If they waited here just 60 minutes, they would all absorb the maximum dose of radiation permitted Soviet troops during wartime. They drove on, following the line of high-voltage transmission towers that marched toward the horizon in the direction of the power plant. Their readings climbed still further before falling again. Then, as the armored car rumbled along the concrete bank of the station's cooling canal, the outline of the fourth unit of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant finally became visible, and Logachev and his crew gazed at it in silence. The roof of the 20-story building had been torn open, its other upper levels blackened and collapsed into heaps of rubble. They could see shattered panels of ferroconcrete, tumbled blocks of graphite, and here and there the glittering metal casings of fuel assemblies from the core of a nuclear reactor. A cloud of steam drifted from the wreckage into the sunlit sky. Yet they had orders to conduct a full reconnaissance of the plant. Their armored car crawled counterclockwise around the complex at 10 kilometers an hour. Sergeant Vlaskin called out the radiation readings from the new instruments, and Logachev scribbled them down on a map, hand-drawn on a sheet of parchment paper in ballpoint pen and colored marker. 1 roentgen per hour, then 2, then 3. They turned left and the figures began to rise quickly. 10, 30, 50, 100. 250 roentgens an hour, the sergeant shouted, his eyes widening. Comrade Lieutenant, he began, and pointed at the radiometer. Logachev looked down at the digital readout and felt his scalp prickle with terror. 2,080 roentgens an hour, an impossible number. Logachev struggled to remain calm and remember the textbook, to conquer his fear. But his training failed him, and the lieutenant heard himself screaming in panic at the driver, petrified that the vehicle would stall. Why are you going this way, you son of a bee? Are you out of your effing mind? If this thing dies, we'll all be corpses in 15 minutes. Part 1, Chapter 1, The Soviet Prometheus. At the slow beat of approaching rotor blades, black birds rose into the sky, scattering over the frozen meadows and the pearly knots of creeks and ponds lacing the Pripyat River basin. Far below, standing knee-deep in snow, his breath lingering in heavy clouds, Viktor Brukhanov awaited the arrival of the nomenklatura from Moscow. When the helicopter touched down, the delegation of ministers and Communist Party officials trudged together over the icy field. The savage cold gnawed at their heavy woolen coats and nipped beneath their tall fur hats. The head of the Ministry of Energy and Electrification of the USSR and senior party bosses from the Soviet Socialist Republic of Ukraine joined Brukhanov at the spot where their audacious new project was to begin. Just 34 years old, clever and ambitious, a dedicated party man, Brukhanov had come to Western Ukraine with orders to begin building what would become the greatest nuclear power station on Earth. Midnight at Chernobyl.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Hey, welcome to the third hour of our program. The national redistricting wars enter a new phase. This is redistricting is a fancy way of saying gerrymandering. I think most people are more familiar with that term. And, of course, Hakeem Jeffries was in Illinois yesterday trying to encourage Democratic lawmakers in Illinois to add one more Democratic seat to that state's map. At the same time, Indiana lawmakers are convening a special session to consider getting rid of a Democratic seat in Indiana. In Virginia, the Democrats are pitching a victory in next Tuesday's gubernatorial elections. And if they win the way that they think they might win, then they may be able to add 2 or even 3 Democratic seats to the House of Representatives. Democrats in California, again, Tuesday will be the election for Proposition 50. If you're listening to us in California, vote yes on Prop 50. And in Indiana, this is interesting. Roderick Bray, who is the Republican Senate President pro tem, he says that he doesn't have the necessary votes for the new maps. So, we'll see how this plays out. But on the one hand, you've got Republicans like down in Texas, just doing even more extreme gerrymandering than in the past. And they're doing it in several other states as well. But there are limits to even gerrymandering, because as you take Democratic votes away from Democratic districts, from say you've got a district that's 2 districts next to each other. One is a safely Democratic district. The Democrats always win by 10 points. The one next door is a safely Republican district. The Republican always wins by 10 points. And you move a bunch of those Democrats into the Republican district to get it down to the point where you think that Democratic district can flip Republican. Well, the danger is that you've also diluted the Republican district to the point where it might flip Democratic. My 10-to-10 ratio doesn't make that quite as apparent as it would in the real life examples. But the fact of the matter is that in a genuine wave election, and whether or not we have a genuine wave election in 26 or in 28 is going to depend, in my opinion, to a large extent on, number one, how often we get out in the streets, and number two, how effective a job the billionaire-owned right-wing media, which is increasingly is, CBS, soon to be CNN, maybe by 26, even MSNBC, and certainly the Washington Post and the LA Times, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, whether or not they can convince people to vote Republican. It's always astonishing to me that anybody's voting Republican. But, other than just people are just naked bigots. I mean, I get that. But there is a potential downside to this. So will this be a wave election? Will 2026? We're going to get some indication of this next week, next Tuesday. And I'm looking forward to being on the air next Wednesday, a week from tomorrow, and having this conversation, because a week from today, we're going to have these votes. And, you know, the Republicans are placing pretty high bets here, and the Democrats are trying to match them. And it looks like the Republicans are still going to end up with probably 5 or 10 more seats than they would have had otherwise. But in wave elections, it's not unusual for, you know, the 20, 30, 40 seats to change. Now, I realize, you know, it's, the maps have gotten a lot more rigidified over the last 60 years than they were back, you know, in the Reagan era or even in FDR's era. But still, you know, when people figure out what's going on and they're not happy about it, things can change. And in particular, the big vulnerability that Trump is facing is the economy. If this AI bubble pops, and I believe it will, I just don't know when, I believe it'll pop within the next 4 or 5 years. There are some people who are saying it might pop in the next 3 months. I'm skeptical about that, but certainly it wouldn't surprise me if it pops within the next year or two. Sean was suggesting I should rewrite my book, The Crash of 2016, to be The Crash of 2026. I think it's probably a pretty good idea. But if they can, you know, if the economy falls apart and we experience a serious recession, I mean, you know, it was the Bush crash of 2008 that most political observers give credit for the victory of Barack Obama in 2008 in the election. And then Obama did a great job for 4 years, and so he got reelected. But when the economy falls apart, you had the Bush crash, you had the recession during George Herbert Walker Bush's election, that his little 3-day war with Iraq didn't help bail him out, and Bill Clinton came in based on "it's the economy, stupid." I mean, if you look at, you know, basically, you know, Jimmy Carter inherited an economy that was absolutely in the crappers from Jerry Ford, you know, inflation at 15%, and he fixed it. Bill Clinton inherited an economy from Reagan and Bush that was just devastated, and he fixed it. High inflation again. Barack Obama inherited a terrible economy from George W. Bush, and he fixed it. And Joe Biden inherited a mess from Donald Trump economically, and he fixed it. So we have these cycles, you know, and it's been going on for 50 years now, of a Republican ruining the economy, followed by an electoral swing that pushes a Democrat into office. The Democrat repairs the economy, gets things humming. A Republican comes into office, starts claiming credit for a great economy, and then screws it up and blows it up again in everybody's face. Reagan blew up the economy, threw us, you know, almost $3 trillion into debt, $2.4 trillion into debt from $800 billion when he came into office. Less than 800, 790 something. You know, so Reagan screwed it up, and then you had Bush screw it up, and then you had Trump screw it up. I mean, you know, and the Democrats ride to the rescue, and for some reason they don't get credit for this. And I'd say that that's the bias of the so-called mainstream media. Meanwhile, there's this is kind of an obscure story, but I think it tells the story of what could be happening here if Donald Trump keeps moving America in the direction of going after people that he doesn't think are sufficiently loyal to him, or that he thinks are actually openly hostile to him. There is a Ukrainian scientist who lives in Crimea, which, keep in mind, is part of Ukraine. It's not currently occupied by Russia, but it's Ukrainian territory. Russia took it in 2014. And this Ukrainian scientist, his name is Leonid Peshkinov. He's 70 years old. He's a biologist. He's one of the world's leading experts on Antarctica. And the Russians and the Chinese have been fishing for krill. And krill are these little tiny, they're not microscopic, but they're like, you know, the size of, you know, a grain of wheat or smaller. These little tiny animals, they look like shrimp if you look at them closely. They're related to shrimp, that whales eat and penguins eat, and a lot of fish down there eat the krill. And in fact, it's what colors it colors their flesh red in some cases. And krill oil is a real popular supplement right now, and an awful lot of it comes out of China and Russia, and they are overfishing the krill down around the Antarctic peninsula or continent to the point that it's endangering the wildlife. And so this scientist was on his way to Australia to speak at a conference about this issue. And Putin had him arrested, said he defected to the enemy's side. The 70-year-old scientist, who just wants to do his damn job, is now being charged basically with treason. And a fellow oceanographer said his only problem was that he had the misfortune of living in Kerch, Crimea, when it was captured by Russian troops. But this is the direction that Donald Trump wants to take America. And I think it's a very, very scary and dangerous thing. And we need to be paying attention to it. This authoritarian idea that if you speak badly of dear leader, you will be punished. It's not how democracy is supposed to work. It's not how governments are supposed to work. But it's how Putin runs Russia. It's how Orban runs Hungary. And increasingly, it's how Donald Trump runs America. And we can't have this.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
We are a nation founded by people who stood up and spoke out against the powers that be. To strip that ability from us is criminal. And welcome back, Paul in St. Louis, Missouri. Hey, Paul, what's up?
Hey, thanks for taking my call, Tom. I was interested, it was a good segue with Ukraine, because my concern is the Gerald R. Ford is headed to the Caribbean. Donald Trump is in Asia, and I'm afraid that Putin is going to take the opportunity to take out Ukraine. All it's going to take is one of those threatened nuclear weapons on Kiev when the parliament is in session, Zelensky is in office, and the Ukrainian government will be gone.
Yeah.
Hungarian and Russian troops are ready to pour across the border. I believe the Gerald R. Ford is one of the great supports of NATO in Europe. And when it's gone, NATO will do nothing. They'll be sitting there wringing their hands. What are they going to do, attack Russia?
Yeah. It's, well, that's the big challenge, Paul. Also, Ukraine is not a NATO country, so it doesn't have Article 5 protections. I share your concern.
Well, and I'm just afraid
Where
that
was the Gerald
Ukraine
Ford stationed, a month ago?
I'm sorry?
Where was the Gerald Ford stationed a month ago?
I believe it was in the Mediterranean.
Interesting. That's a long haul to the Caribbean from the Mediterranean.
Well, that gets it out of the way, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
And it's that show of force. We're talking Venezuela, but it's Ukraine that's going to be gone.
I get it. My other concern, apropos of this, we saw in Japan today how easily Trump is manipulated. I mean, the current prime minister of Japan, very smart woman. She speaks pretty good English, and she just wrapped him around her little finger. She praised him and flattered him, and he nominated him for the Nobel Peace Prize. And now he's talking about how wonderful she is and how no more tariffs for Japan and blah 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 blah. I'm concerned that when he meets with Xi on, I think it's Thursday that he's planned to meet with President Xi of China, that Xi is going to get from him some sort of an assurance that if Xi moves against Taiwan, we will not intervene. And that could be the thing that would tell Putin now's the time to move. Or Putin going after Ukraine could be the thing that tells Xi now is the time to move. And in either case, I keep pointing this out. My nightmare scenario for World War III is, we're in a war with Venezuela, Israel's in a war with Iran, and then China, Taiwan, and Ukraine, Russia. But I don't think Russia will stop at Ukraine. That's the big part of it. There's no doubt in my mind that Putin, in fact, his top generals and Medvedev, his number 2 guy, have already said this, that after they take Ukraine, they're going to take a piece of Poland and they want a chunk of Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia as well. They're trying to get the band back together. You know, they're trying to restore the old Soviet Union. And, you know, it's going to be a tough one.
Well, I do have a thought about Taiwan.
Yeah.
The last I looked, the Taiwanese gross domestic product is about $1 trillion. We owe China approximately $1 trillion. I could see Trump selling Taiwan to the Chinese for $2 trillion.
Wow.
Just sell it to them.
Yeah, yeah. You know,
No
Paul,
wars,
I can't dispute it. You just can't. You know, Trump is capable of anything, and he's so stupid. I mean, this is the problem. The man is not that bright, and does not read. Paul, thank you for the call. I'm just concerned. I'm very concerned. Change starts with you. You can be calling your Democratic or Republican representatives to let them know what you think by calling 202-224-3121. It's the Capitol switchboard. It'll get you right through to them. When Ronald Reagan took over America in 1981, we handed him a brand gleaming new country. Franklin Roosevelt, Harry Truman, Dwight Eisenhower, Jack Kennedy, they had built America. We had brand new schools, brand new hospitals, brand new interstate highway systems, brand new airports, infrastructure. We were the envy of the world. And then Republicans came along and they said, well, you just cut the top tax rate from 74% down to 27% and everything will trickle down. Instead, what do we get? Billionaires and poverty. They said, hey, just deregulate guns and an armed society is a polite society. Instead, we've got more school shootings than anywhere in the world. They said, just kill off civics and history classes in our schools and it'll liberate our young people to focus on science and math. Now we've got people who don't know how our government works. I mean, it just goes on from there. There's a whole rant about it over at HartmannReport.com titled FDR Saved America, Then the GOP Ripped Us Apart. Check it out. So the Epstein ballroom, this is just hysterical. The Lincoln Project just came out with a video that is Donald Trump speaking to the camera. It's a voiceover and also to the camera. Now, of course, it's AI generated, but just an example of what, and the Lincoln Project is running this thing. They're totally running with this meme of the Epstein ballroom. Here is their little 1-minute clip. Here it is.
Looking for Washington, D.C.'s most glamorous entertainment venue? Look no further than Donald Trump's Jeffrey Epstein Memorial Ballroom. At the Jeffrey Epstein Memorial Ballroom, we specialize in middle school dances, sweet 16 parties, quinceañeras, beauty pageants, foam parties, and so much more. The Epstein Ballroom is Washington's beautiful secret. 90,000 square feet of gold, glitter, and class. Make your event magical with the Epstein Ballroom's Diddy Baby Oil Flume. Join DJ TJ as he DJs all ages shows. And this Christmas season, you can sit on Santa Donnie's lap. Say goodbye to 123 years of history and say hello to the Donald Trump Epstein Memorial Ballroom. At the Donald Trump Jeffrey Epstein Memorial Ballroom, every day is a wonderful secret.
There we go. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. All right, what's on your mind today? Let's pick up some phone calls here. Sally in Port Huron, Michigan. Hey, Sally, what's up?
Hi, Tom. How you doing?
Good.
I saw on the news last week that Jack Smith had requested a public hearing in front of the Judiciary Committee.
Yeah, Jim Jordan wants him to testify behind closed doors, and he's having none of it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Other than Trump's retaliation, which I'm sure he's already under scrutiny, what is preventing him from, like, doing an interview, maybe a 60-minute, or what is preventing him from coming forward? Because
I don't know. I mean, there may be some legal constraints based on the job that he held. I mean, you know, when you're somebody's lawyer, and he was the government's lawyer,
right.
You have to maintain a level of client confidentiality. You know, I'm sure that there's a lot of things he can't say to 60 Minutes won't do it because they're now owned by the Ellison family, and they've just turned to. I watched the CBS Evening News night before last just to see what they're doing, and it was just complete fluff, you know. But other, you know, some other show might, but he won't be able to say those things. But he can say them when he's before a congressional committee, and that's why he wants to testify in open court. Go ahead.
That's what I figured. He's pretty straight and narrow.
Yeah. No, he's going to follow the law.
Professional guy, right?
The danger to him, Jim Jordan has said he wants private testimony. Jim Jordan can compel that. He can subpoena that. Now, Jim Jordan himself was subpoenaed, you know, when the Democrats controlled the House, to testify. You know, I don't recall, I think it was about the 2020 attempt by Trump to steal the election. And Jim Jordan refused to testify. He could have been held in contempt of Congress. I mean, they're prosecuting Jim Comey right now for lying to Congress. And so, you know, what Jordan could do is he could hold Jack Smith in contempt of Congress and prosecute him if he refuses to testify in private. And that's my prediction, is that that's what he'll do. And that Smith will continue to say, no, I don't want to testify in private. We'll see how it shakes out.
Well, I would love to hear what he has to say, because I'm sure he has some really important things to tell the people.
He knows where the bodies are buried, both literally and metaphorically.
Yes, and I would love to hear what he has to say.
Yeah. I think Jim Jordan doesn't want to hear what he has to say.
Oh, of course not. Yeah, they want to keep secrets from us.
Yeah, yeah. Especially, you know, I mean, he compiled so much information about the crimes of Donald Trump. And I think America deserves to know, as you know, to quote Richard Nixon, America needs to know if their president is a crook. And
absolutely.
Somebody should make an ad with, you know, Richard Nixon saying that, because he so famously did so. But yeah.
Yeah, if somebody had the courage. Nowadays, everybody's afraid of retaliation.
Yeah. Well, going to jail is nothing to sneeze at, Sally. I mean, seriously, even for Jack Smith. I got to run, but thank you for the call. 27 minutes past the hour. I'll be picking up your calls on the other side of the break. Stay tuned. It's the Thom Hartmann Program, the place where we dare to ask, is Walmart a person? And we dare to say, no, the right-wingers on the Supreme Court lied to you about that one, too. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Talk media for the sane among us. Stick around. Today we're reading from David Enrich's book, Dark Towers, Deutsche Bank, Donald Trump, and an Epic Trail of Destruction. This is from Chapter 10. It's titled The Mar-a-Lago Prize. In 1905, a German immigrant living in the Bronx set up a small barber shop on the ground floor of a newly constructed building at 60 Wall Street, in the heart of Manhattan's booming financial district. In an era before skyscrapers, the 25-story L-shaped tower was a landmark, its gargoyle-guarded roof visible from the nearby waterfront. The barbershop thrived, offering shaves and trims to a procession of bankers, stock exchange traders, lawyers, and office workers. The barber's name was Frederick Trump. The same year that he opened the shop, his wife gave birth to a boy named Fred. Many years passed, and the barbershop closed, and the old 60 Wall Street gave way in 1989 to a new 60 Wall Street, a 47-story tower topped with a distinctive pyramid roof. For a time, it was home to J.P. Morgan and Company. Then the bank left, and in 2005, Deutsche Bank started relocating its American staff, displaced ever since 9/11, to its new home at 60 Wall Street. And so Frederick Trump's grandson, born to Fred's wife in 1946, became an occasional visitor to the site of his grandfather's old barber shop. Deutsche's relationship with Donald Trump had only deepened since Mike Offit left. Justice Justin Kennedy, this is the son of Justice Anthony Kennedy, Justin Kennedy, now a managing director, had become a key point contact for Trump and helped chaperone large real estate deals for him through the bank. Kennedy's role was to find customers to buy portions of loans after Deutsche dispensed the money, a process that allowed Deutsche Bank to make larger loans than it otherwise could have. Kennedy sometimes sat with Trump in his luxury box at the U.S. Open tennis tournament or at Manhattan nightclubs, where Trump would park himself at a table in the corner facing outward, holding court like a mafia don. Now, with Kennedy's encouragement, Deutsche hurried along a Henry Villard-like path. In 2000, the bank had plunked down another $150 million to be used for the renovations of Trump's building at 40 Wall Street. The next year, Deutsche agreed to extend Trump a mortgage worth more than $900 million, at the time the largest ever on a single property, so he could buy the General Motors building on the southeastern corner of New York's Central Park. Trump already owned half of the 50-story building. He wanted the rest. And in 2002, Deutsche agreed to refinance about $70 million that he owed on some of his Atlantic City casinos. Those loans came out of Deutsche's commercial real estate division, which Kennedy was helping to run. Not everyone was enamored with Trump. Seth Waugh, W-A-U-G-H, one of Edson's many Merrill Lynch recruits and the head of Deutsche's American operations, learned around 2001 that the bank was planning to lend Trump about $500 million to use as he wished, basically an unrestricted cash infusion to stabilize the developer's flagging finances. Waugh had previously witnessed up close the carnage that Trump could inflict on imprudent financial institutions. At Merrill, Edison had assigned him the task of mopping up after Trump defaulted on nearly $700 million of bonds that Merrill had helped sell for his Taj Mahal casino in Atlantic City. Waugh was in no hurry to repeat the experience at Deutsche. He voiced strong objections to the proposed new loan to Trump, in which Trump would not have had to put up any hard assets as collateral, and the deal soon died. Yet Deutsche's broader Trump relationship rumbled on. In 2003, another arm of Deutsche, focused on helping companies raise money by selling stocks and bonds to investors, agreed to work with Trump. The point man on this part of the relationship was Richard Byrne, another Merrill veteran who had been involved in the Taj Mahal debacle. Byrne had helped sell the ill-fated Taj bonds to investors. Now Trump hired Byrne's group at Deutsche to issue bonds for his troubled Trump hotel and casino resorts. Byrne knew this would be an uphill battle. Not only had Trump defaulted in the past, but he also had recently been taunting investors that he might stop paying back other outstanding bonds. Waugh didn't warn Byrne about the recently rejected $500 million loan, and so Byrne organized a roadshow for Trump to meet with and try to win over big institutional investors. He escorted Trump to meetings all over New York and Boston. At every stop, boardrooms and auditoriums were jammed with traders, fund managers, senior executives, and secretaries curious to see the Donald show, and Trump didn't disappoint. He rocked, he rolled, and he delivered wildly optimistic and inconsistent financial projections. Afterward, Trump called Byrne to ask how much money they'd raised. The answer, alas, was virtually zero. Byrne braced for an explosion as he explained to Trump that though he'd been treated like a celebrity, nobody trusted him with their money. Trump took the rejection in stride. "Let me talk to your salespeople," he requested. Byrne agreed, and Trump came to deliver a pep talk. "Fellas, I know this isn't the easiest thing you've all had to sell," he acknowledged, "but if you get this done, you'll all be my guests at Mar-a-Lago." Trump was always good at pushing an audience's buttons. A weekend with Trump at Mar-a-Lago, bragging rights that not even money could buy, and this new incentive did the trick. The salesman worked the phones, cast a wider net for more clients, and managed to sell an impressive $485 million of junk bonds, albeit at a high interest rate that reflected investors' fears that Trump might default. The book Dark Towers by David Enrich. Help support Progressive Radio. If you're listening to us on a commercial station, call their advertisers and let them know you're listening. If you're listening to us on Pacifica, one of our many nonprofit stations, please support them when they do their fundraising drives. Thanks for supporting Progressive Talk Radio, and tag you're it. So MAGA Mike and the Republicans want a religious test for people running for public office. They want to know that you are sufficiently Christian to be worthy of being elected. Right. MAGA Mike is one of these 7 mountain evangelicals. There are 7 domains where these dominionists believe that we need to have religion completely take them over. Education, religion, family, business, government and military, arts and entertainment, and the media. Seriously. This is not what Jesus was preaching when he said, give unto Caesar what is Caesar and unto God what is God's. This is the opposite, in fact, of what Jesus was teaching. It's the opposite of Matthew 25, where Jesus said, the only way to get to heaven is by feeding the hungry, healing the sick, helping the poor. This is counter-Christian, anti-Christian, in fact. In fact, I think you could say it is the Antichrist's work. There's a piece about it over at HartmannReport.com. Check it out.
This isn't your house, Mr. Trump. It never was. It's ours, the people's. He rolled in with a wrecking ball of gold. Said this old house needed his brand new mold. Tore down the east wing while the flag still flew. 0 cost to taxpayers. Yeah, we heard that too. He calls it his ballroom, his legacy stage. But the walls belong to every generation, every age. We watch the jackhammer singing through our history's page. This is our house, not his house. We the people say. While children dream of better days, he's counting chandeliers in a ballroom craze, calling it modernization with bulletproof glass and gold. But the heart of the place is being bought and sold. Heritage whispers, the column halls high, the bulldozer laughs as the people sigh. Oh, the metaphor's tragic, can't you see? Pause when we the people fades beneath applause. This is our house, not his house. We the people shout.
37 minutes past the hour. Enough already, Mr. Trump. Enough. It is our house that you tore down. It's an obscenity what he did. Rob in Mesa, Arizona. Hey, Rob, what's on your mind today?
Hey, I just did, thinking about the subsidies going away for the health care, and I'm thinking, why are we paying subsidies to a company that pays out dividends in the first place? And then I got my thought pattern going. And I thought, okay, well, how much are they actually making and giving out in dividends? So I asked ChatGPT to say, what would happen if we made all health insurance nonprofit? And it basically it gave me a bunch of numbers in that, but I'll try and summarize it here. It basically says that 100 to 140 billion would be redirected to patient care.
Yep.
And that would mean that would be full health care coverage for every uninsured American, and it would basically supply essential medicines for insulin, blood sugar, asthma, everything for millions of Americans without raising any prices or anything.
Yeah, you're talking about the Canadian system here, Rob. I mean, they've got Medicare for every person in Canada.
Right. And so if we I look at the dividends, and I've stated this before, it's like if you're receiving dividends from health insurance, you're receiving death dividends. Because those are dividends taken away from medications and procedures. And we should just ban it and say, look, you don't want a public option? Okay, well, you can't have, shareholders.
Yeah.
And that would save a ton of money.
I think you're right. Rob, thank you. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Tim in New Berlin, Wisconsin. Hey, Tim, what's up?
Well, hey, I'm the crazy Republican that you think I am, but that's okay.
Well, I don't think you're
have
crazy.
A couple things. Oh, going down the rabbit hole, I think, is what you actually said. Yeah. But you're the one that's going down the rabbit hole. But I'll start with this. First of all, as far as no, you got me flustered. But basically,
okay,
you have
Tim.
a national. You have a national platform.
Right.
You have a responsibility to say accurate things. Don't smear the president. Don't smear Republicans. I mean, your actions alone are helping the crazy liberals out there do things like to Charlie Kirk. It's your words that are inciting
the
violence.
kid who killed Charlie Kirk came out of a Republican family, not a Democratic family.
Well, I came out of a Democrat family, and I'm a Republican, so you can't use that stupid argument.
Well, you actually can. The guy was not a member of any kind of Democratic organization. He wasn't posting Democratic talking points. He was apparently pissed off that Charlie Kirk was trash-talking trans people. Yeah. What does that have to do with Republicans or Democrats? Unless you're admitting that the part of the Republican platform is to hate on trans people.
No. But let's move on.
Okay.
First of all, let's three more points actually. First of all, while I was on hold, you're trashing the ballroom. The ballroom is for the people. Americans, the white.
Why is he building VIP suites across the top of it?
Truman gutted the White House in '56. Obama built
the White House was collapsing, Tim.
Yeah, things have changed. Obama
his wife's piano fell through the floor. I mean, he didn't gut it; he fixed it. That's a whole different thing. And they did it, by the way. They did it with a commission that, a preservation commission that came in and said, what do we have to? How do we structurally improve the White House without making it so it doesn't look like it did, when John Adams occupied it?
Trump is keeping the design of the White House. He's not. Having to have
his abomination is going to be larger than the White House itself.
That's what you think. But then
that's what Donald Trump said.
No.
Yes, he said it will be larger than the White House itself.
Okay.
He's quite proud of it.
You don't even know what you're talking about.
No, come on, Tim. He's telling us, his thing is bigger than our thing. His ballroom is going to be bigger than the White House. He has Google it. Don't take my word for it.
I don't want to talk about that anymore. I want to talk about two more questions.
Okay.
First of all, you've never answered the question: what part of illegal immigrants do you not understand? There's nowhere in the world where I can go and just move to, like, for example, France, start working, start making a living. I'd be kicked out of the country immediately, but
you're right.
You are expecting illegal immigrants to be able to just come in,
No, I'm not.
Do whatever.
I've never said anything saying, Tim. Never in my life.
Actually, that's what the Democrats have said.
When I worked and lived in Australia, and when I worked and lived in, I didn't live in Australia. When I worked in Australia and when I worked and lived for a little over a year in Germany, I got permits in both cases. I got visas. I think that anybody who wants to be in the United States should do it legally.
You did it the right way.
I know, and that's how people should do it here, too.
Absolutely, but they're not. 20 million illegal immigrants are in this country or more. I'm sure it's actually more.
Then help them leave the country. But you don't need to be rappelling off roofs into buildings. You don't need to be kicking indoors. You don't need to be beating up 12-year-olds. You don't need to be separating children from their families. You simply say, as would have happened to me when I lived in Germany, they have a special police force that just deals with immigration. And they come to your door and they say, we know who you are. We know you're here illegally. You have 30 days to leave the country. We'd be glad to help you if you need some help. If you want to apply for asylum, we can help you with that. If you're not out of here within 30 days, then bad things will happen to you. It's very simple.
Why did 20 million people come in through Biden and Obama? I know they did some deportations.
Well, it wasn't just Biden and Obama, Tim. It was Ronald Reagan who stopped.
Everybody else too.
It was Reagan who stopped. Let me finish my sentence, Tim. If you want to argue with me, we have to have a little bit of dialogue here. It was Ronald Reagan who stopped enforcing the law that said that employers, wealthy white employers, can go to jail. The last time a wealthy white employer went to jail was back in the 70s. Reagan stopped that. Now, no Democrat restarted it. I'll give you that.
Evil employers, those evil employers.
Well, you want to know, you asked the question, why did 20 million people come here? They were publishing the shopping guide kind of newspapers. They were publishing those things with ads for meatpacking plants in the Midwest and for ranches in Texas in Spanish and distributing them in Mexico and in Guatemala. Just 15, 20 years ago. That's why they came.
Here's one of my points. People like you and the liberals that want power without cost, they don't give a damn about black or brown people. They don't at all. All they're worried about is bringing in people so that the congressional maps can change in their favor. That's the only reason.
Tim, people who aren't citizens can't vote, number one. And number two,
they're counted in the
be
congressional
careful of your projection.
maps.
Oh, sure, yeah, they are counted. You're absolutely right.
And therefore, that's where the Democrats' evil plan is.
Why?
To get more congressional seats.
Wait a minute. Most of your immigrants, well, okay, I'll give you it's probably is helping some of the cities. You're probably right. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's
I don't think it's any kind of deep, dark plot, though. I mean, it's also helping, the ranchers in Montana. It's helping the farmers in red parts of California.
And I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem creating visas or whatever for the farmers and so forth to bring in people, because I'll give you a little clue. I used to manage a store where we had a lot of Hispanic people. They're probably the hardest working people there. Sure. I would hire them over anybody else, black or white, because they were the hardest workers.
Well, that's generally true of immigrants all around the world. That's the immigrant story.
But the point being is they have to come here legally.
I agree.
The moment they step onto our land without proper documents, they've committed a crime.
I agree. And they have committed a misdemeanor. They haven't committed a felony, but I agree. And so does every Democrat.
No, they don't.
You're listening to Fox News, Tim. You're being lied to.
Oh, okay.
They think of you as a sucker. They're laughing at you.
Fox News.
I'm not. I'm taking you seriously.
I know
treating
they
you
have
respectfully.
more listenerships than all the other ones combined. That's what.
Did you ever read the text messages between Sean Hannity and the management when they were lying to you about the election of 2020?
Right,
these suckers! They'll believe anything we say.
I don't believe anything a Democrat says because you can't trust them.
Okay.
I mean,
all right, Tim.
And then,
Tim, do you have one last point? Because I got to hit a break here.
Yes. One last point. You mocked me when I compared socialist to communism, but socialism is a stepsister of communism. You start with socialism, you end up with communism, which both systems have failed and have never worked. World in the course of human history has never worked.
So you think that the socialism in the United States, for example, Social Security and Medicare, which is clear socialism.
It's minimal. No, it's
no. Or our police departments, minimal. Which are socialist. That doesn't work.
Yeah, but
we should get rid of them.
Yeah, but
Rand Paul would agree with you. Rand Paul thinks we should get rid of Social Security and Medicare because they're socialism.
Yeah, socialism.
He also thinks we should get rid of publicly owned roads. Rand Paul thinks that every road should be owned by a billionaire and they should put toll gates on them. Honest to God, this is the libertarian ideology. Are you agreeing with that, Tim?
Stop with the billionaire stuff.
Yeah. Tim, I'm sorry, that's a hard break that I can't stop.
Grow up and get a job. Become Republican.
I've got a job, Tim. Good talking with you, as always. Thanks for the call. It's 48 minutes past the hour. We'll be back with more of your calls in just a minute. Stick around.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Helping you win the water cooler wars. I'll be right back with your calls. Stay with us. And welcome back. Andy in Jonestown, Pennsylvania. Hey, Andy, what's on your mind today?
Yeah. I'm seeing a lot of protests. People are going to lose their SNAP benefits and all this. Mm-hmm. Government workers are coming in and working and not getting paid.
Right.
The people responsible for the government shutdown, Congress, why do they still get paid? If they shut down the government, they shouldn't get paid.
I agree.
And the same thing for ICE. If you took all the money that was being paid to ICE and took that money and gave it to SNAP benefits or other, essential programs, it wouldn't hurt.
I agree. Well, Brooke Rollins is the head of the U.S. Department of Agriculture, which oversees SNAP and food stamps, and she's got a $5 billion contingency fund, an emergency fund for food stamps, and she's claiming that Congress not reauthorizing payments for food stamps is not an emergency, and I would suggest that she talk to some of these low-income families who are going to be looking at their children go to sleep hungry.
I agree with that. I mean, families got to think. These actions by Trump are going to not just hurt them, but it's going to hurt their children too.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
And then they want to start teaching religion in public schools. I believe in Jesus Christ and all that. But the reason why I don't want church and state to be equal or anything like that, or the same thing, is because I don't want the government taking over my religion.
Yeah, no, I get it, Andy, and both points were well made. Thank you very much for the call. Morris in Inglewood, California. Hey, Morris, Louise was looking at your picture this morning, and she said, he looks like a really nice guy. Just thought you'd want to know.
He's a really nice guy that needs to gain about 30 pounds. But let me tell you something, Thomas. Now, we're in, these are unprecedented times, so it's all called for some unprecedented actions, you know that. Now, what if New York, California, and Illinois decided, you know what, we're not going to send no more money to the federal government. We're not going to abandon the people. The federal government might want to abandon the people, but we can't do that. We have an inherent responsibility to the people of our state, and y'all ain't getting no more money until we straighten this stuff out. Now, I got another point I want to make with you, Tom. Am I tripping, or we're at war anyway? Am I tripping, or is that something that can come to pass?
Well, no, the problem is the states don't send the money to the federal government. You and I do, and our employers do. And so the states can't control that. 90%, I don't know the exact percentage, but it's got to be in the neighborhood of 90% of all the money that goes from your state of California or my state of Oregon to D.C. goes out of payroll taxes. And, the state can't intervene in that. It has no say in that process.
I understand. I could appreciate that, Tom. Listen, I got something for the Democrats, okay? Listen, that Ronald Reagan ad about the tariffs, run that ad. Run that. Don't have to say, just run that ad. You want to talk on messaging? Have you lost your job? Run that ad.
Yeah.
Okay, are the food prices high? Run that ad.
Yep.
Do you have some money in your pocket? You ain't got no money in your pocket? Run that ad. American manufacturing has been, run the ad. Okay,
Yep.
Have you lost trust in government, including the rule of law? Run that ad. And to an earlier call, let me tell you something. People are never illegal.
Morris, the Democrats need to hire you as a consultant, or you should be teaching political science at a university. It's always great hearing from you, and it was great meeting you in Los Angeles a couple weeks ago, a week or so ago.
You got it, Tom.
Yeah.
You got it, Tom.
Thanks a lot, Morris. 52 minutes past the hour. We'll be back with more of your calls in just a minute. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. Back in 2010, when Viktor Orban took over the Fidesz party in Hungary, that party was sort of like the Republican Party. It was just a conventional conservative European political party. And he has turned it into a neo-fascist powerhouse. He pushed through he altered the nation's constitution to push through what we would call gerrymandering and voter suppression so that his party will always win. He campaigned on building a wall. Build a wall was literally one of his campaign slogans, and he did build a wall across the southern border of Hungary to keep out Syrian refugees who were fleeing the violence when Russia was bombing that country. His other two campaign slogans were, and I quote, "Restore Christian purity and make Hungary great again." Seriously, back in 2010, 6 years before Trump. There's an amazing backstory about how Viktor Orban is being cloned, essentially, in the GOP. You can find the article over at hartmanreport.com. Check it out. 54 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. Picking up your calls here. Matt in Downers Grove, Illinois. Hey, Matt, what's up?
Yeah, I went to the Broadview ICE facility over the weekend with my wife.
Uh-huh.
And there wasn't much going on there, but we were talking to some of the protesters, and they were complaining that the mayor had put a 6 o'clock curfew, and at 6 o'clock, the state police were coming out, and if you weren't gone by 6 o'clock, the state police were beating them with their batons.
Ouch.
Now, I've been trying to find video of this, and all I can find is state police holding their batons in front of them and like using them to shove people,
which makes more sense.
Yeah,
somebody might have been exaggerating.
It could be exaggeration, or could these be plants that are trying to make Pritzker look bad?
Could be. That's a possibility too.
Because I think this is something that Pritzker should get in front of.
Well, I think I'm guessing. I don't know. I have no inside knowledge here, but I'm guessing that they're doing the curfew to prevent, provocateurs in the night when it's a lot easier to conceal your identity.
They are camped out there 24 hours.
Yeah.
On a side street.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
And yes, but I found that strange that the state police would do something like that, and that if Pritzker knew about it, that he'd allow it.
Yeah.
But I just thought, maybe one of your other listeners has more info, or
hopefully tomorrow somebody will call in and enlighten us. So, right now I don't know, and we're going to hit the end of the show here in about 15 seconds.
Yeah, I know. But I just wanted to bring it up there because what one of them said was, it's like the state police are protecting the ICE agents.
Well, I think the state police are, again, I have no inside knowledge here, but what logically makes sense is that they're trying to prevent the kind of problem, shall we say, that would justify Donald Trump really bringing the troops in and starting to shoot people, which I think he would love to do.
I agree, but I also am like, are they, Pritzker?
No, I get it, man. I get it. I got to run. I'm sorry. But, the glee that Donald Trump is showing over killing people in the Caribbean in these commuter boats, the 7 miles between Trinidad and Venezuela, as these people are just boating to work back and forth, suggests to me that he would love to have a fight in Chicago. Thanks so much for being with us. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. Get out there, get active, tag you're it. Have a great afternoon. I'll catch up with you tomorrow.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmanreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmanreport.com.
Join DJ TJ as he DJs all ages shows. And this Christmas season, you can sit on Santa Donnie's lap. Say goodbye to 123 years of history and say hello to the Donald Trump Epstein Memorial Ballroom. At the Donald Trump Jeffrey Epstein Memorial Ballroom, every day is a wonderful secret.